Woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and good morning to you. I'm Alex Phillips. I'm going to be with you until 1 o'clock today. As per usual, it is a Friday after all, or let's make that Alex Day on Talk. Good to have your company. I hope you've had a splendid week so far and are looking forward to a weekend of relaxation and a weekend, of course, of Breakfast on Talk, hosted by me. Right, OK. Should we just get on with getting on? And remember, if you want to take part in the show, throw in your 2 bits, vent a little bit of anger, be part of communal catharsis, try and stitch together some sort of sense out of the madness that is Britain in 2025, then you can do that essentially free of charge because it's your normal network rate by calling 0344499 1000. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp that I can just casually play out to the nation. 8722 is the number if you'd like to send me a text message. If you're going to do that, you have to write the word talk in capital letters before you then send your message. That way it knows where to go because it doesn't have a map, it doesn't have a compass, it relies on those coordinates. We're on X at talkTV. And let's get on with rounding up today's news, shall we? And I'm joined to do this brilliant pursuit by the one and only Mr. James Price, former Conservative government advisor. All right, my babber?
All right, my love. How are you doing? How are you settling into your Cotswold palace?
Oh, I'm back in the Shire, baby, and I'm going to make you come and join me. I'm going to make a little Brexit retreat in the heart of rural Gloucestershire, and all the good folk of Brexitiness are going to come and join me, and it's going to be a lovely, calm, crime-free, migrant hotel-free, just pure right-wing joy, basically. Why wouldn't you want to come?
Absolutely right. Well, look, when we win, that's what the whole country will be. Don't worry.
When we win, indeed. And we will. So let's talk now about someone who's not really winning at life, or perhaps she is, Rushanara Ali. She's had to resign. She, of course, is the homelessness minister. Why do you need a minister for homelessness, first of all? Point one. Why don't you just put homeless people in hotels like they did during COVID instead of the migrants? But she's had to resign because she doesn't play by her own rules, basically. She evicted tenants and said, oh, it's because I want to sell my house. house, and then within a matter of minutes, the house was back on the market, relisted, with £700 a month rental increase. And she's like, I did everything by the book. It was all according to law. It's the Labour Party who want to push through legislation to make sure people can't do this sort of thing.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? You know, as night follows day, as the dog returneth to his vomit, so the fool returneth to his folly. How is it that so many Labour MPs get caught up in this stuff? How are they so stupid? You've got the anti-homelessness minister getting done for making people homeless. That's following, of course, the anti-corruption minister having to stand down for, you guessed it, corruption, and a host of other people as well. What was the transport secretary? What did she get fired for?
Oh, phones or something.
Pretending that her phone got nicked when actually it was kept in a drawer so she could either have two phones or flog it off. How are these people this stupid that they're willing to destroy their whole careers, their reputations, their livelihoods, all over a couple of £100? It is completely bonkers.
What I want to know is, when you become a minister, by and large, do you get a bit of a pay lift for that? I mean, surely if you've got one of the big offices of state, you're on a tidy paycheck compared to if you're just a backbench MP. But would she be getting a pay lift for being the homelessness minister?
Yeah. A backbench MP gets paid something like, I think it's about £90,000 a year. And ministers go up to something like, I think the PM is on something like 145,000. Ministers in the kind of £130,000 territory.
But even if you're a made-up minister, like the Mickey Mouse minister for homelessness.
Oh, yeah, they all get that. Look,
how many have we got then? How many ministers has Sir Keir Starmer got? I mean, the Minister for Homelessness, that's not even a thing.
There's about 100 ministers across government. You can do the math to find people at home. I actually controversially think that ministers are not paid nearly enough, on the principle that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Yeah. And look at some of the people that we've got in charge now. In Singapore, their prime minister gets paid $1 million a year. And Lee Kuan Yew, who founded Singapore, said, look, it's true that we've got the best paid politicians in the world, but I can guarantee you they're not the richest. But what he meant by that, of course, is that they means you don't go in for corruption. And the transport secretary in Singapore took, I think, some free tickets to watch the Formula One. They got into prison for doing that after the $850,000 a year salary they were on. So I think we should do something like that when it comes to the salary. And by the way, peg it to the economy. Economy goes up, they get paid more. Economy goes down.
Do you know, I've always agreed with these people. Oh, well, MPs on 90,000. Oh, isn't that terrible? And I'm like, actually, it's a very important job. You know, you're basically running a constituency of what, 60, 70,000 odd people. You're responsible to look after them. You're supposed to turn up to debates in Parliament, even if they finish at 11 o'clock at night. You're supposed to be in Parliament Monday to Thursday away from home, doing things in your constituency Friday and over the weekend. It's supposed to be hard work. Unfortunately, a lot of them seem to just be dossers. But this is extraordinary. A homelessness minister, like I said, I've got her job done in 10 seconds. Turn up to a cabinet meeting and say, stop putting migrants in hotels, put homeless people instead. Problem solved.
Well, I think that would be a good start on this. Of course, the actual way I think you fix homelessness long term is it's not really about people not having somewhere to go. The sad truth is that a lot of these people are hooked on drugs and they want to stay on the street because then they can get access to the drugs. Where if you go into certain hospices and shelters and things like that, they'll search you, they'll not let you have access to the drugs and these sorts of things. And so the answer is going to be something that squishy lefty liberals wouldn't like very much, which is we're going to have to kind of recreate some kind of cross between a prison and a hospital, where you take these people in, you wean them off whatever horrible stuff they've got themselves hooked on, which is not a pleasant experience, and frankly deprive them of their liberty whilst you do that. And then of course you can start going, well, you're in loads of debt and you don't have this, that and the other. It's very expensive to do that, and there's not a lot of votes in it, which is why it hasn't happened. And it's why clearly Rush and Ali didn't do a job very well if there are still homeless people out on the streets.
Well, exactly. I mean, my view is look after your own first. It's very simple, because the way I see it, if someone, even if they're a drug-addled monster, there are drug-addled monster, and they've probably gone through some pretty horrible things in their childhood and their past that they ended up in that situation. What we shouldn't be doing is looking after the sort of people we're putting up in Bournemouth. All-inclusive beachfront hotel on probably one of the best beaches in the United Kingdom. Brits who want to go down to Bournemouth Beach are probably looking at paying north of 200 quid a night for the pleasure. And there they are, the migrants living the life of luxury in hotels that frankly should be contributing to the local economy, boosting tourism and hospitality to our coastal towns and cities. And I don't just mean in Bournemouth, I mean around the UK. Climate change this, climate change that. We've had a lovely summer. Lots of Brits might have enjoyed a beach hotel But no, we're going to put any old Tom, Dick and Harry from Afghan, Syria and Tunisia in there instead. And what's worse is I've done a little bit of research, haven't I, James? Because that's the sort of thing that I like to do. And I have found out how many rapes have been committed in Bournemouth over the past 10 years. And it will not surprise you to find out that more than 100 rapes have been reported every single year in the last 2 years. And if you compare that back to statistics 10 years ago, before the advent of migrant hotels, it was fewer than half that. Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah, well, absolutely right. I think the Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, has made some great points on this, of just the numbers of alleged attacks that have happened even in the last week or so, and against children as well. This is what happens. I'm afraid this is going to be something, again, for all the Guardian readers who are watching this show, I'm sure because they secretly come and hate watch us, that they're not going to like hearing this. But there are some cultures that are better than others. And I happen to think, as reduced as we are, though much is taken, much abides, as Tennyson would say, that Britain still has the greatest culture and society of anywhere on earth. Maybe the Americans and the Japanese can kind of come and rival us for some of that. But when you have people from the third world coming in, when you import the third world, you get the third world. And there's a little known fact, this, but there are lots of reports coming out now that the smugglers living it up in Calais, who are getting these people coming over on boat crossings, as part of their advertising campaign, because they do advertise and they do deals and things like that, they show videos of youngish girls, undergraduate age, 18 or whatever, in short skirts and all the rest, out dancing on a night out, wearing skimpy outfits, all the rest of it, and say, look, come over to England and look what you can get your hands on, literally.
Well,
and
no,
they do
exactly. This is exactly what is going on, without a doubt. One of the reasons so many of these men want to get out of Afghanistan is because they haven't even seen an ankle in the 20 years they've been sexually frustrated and roaming around in their desert hellhole. And so they're drawn to coming to the West because they want to enjoy some British women they can mess about and treat worse than cattle because they're not worthy. They can just do what they like with them. I have no doubt that that's what's going on. What's more, when you look at countries like Afghanistan, where they also enjoy fiddling around with kids and marrying off girls at the age of 9, all these men coming over here have a very different idea of how to interact with the general public when it comes to sexual mores than our own men. And you end up with an absolute disaster. And I've seen plenty of videos of the men who come on the boats over to Britain, always giving it all out with the 2 fingers, woo-woo, on TikTok, showing all their mates how great life is. And they always seem to be sitting on a beach, panning the camera around, zooming in on the woman in the bikini, showing off to their mates back at home. Oh, look at these women scantily clad over here. Isn't my life better than yours? I get to drink alcohol and stare at half-naked women and then go on a rampage. This is exactly one of the reasons they want to come here in the first place. It's not just being an economic migrant. Frankly, it's being a sexual migrant.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. And Alex, you've written and spoken very movingly about some of the horrible stuff that's happened to you when you were living in London, and why it is, although we joke about going back to the Shire because it's God's own country, one of the reasons you've gone back is to be away from some of this. My wife has had the same. You see it all over the place. And you can also see the flip side of this, if people in these cultures are so like it, why it is that head coverings, for example, are so popular. Rachel Reeves, the sitting Chancellor of the Exchequer, a video has come out of her wearing a hijab going to meet a group of constituents. No one else seems to be worrying about doing this.
To be fair, her hair looks like a hijab anyway. She needn't have blimmin' bothered.
And then you've got, in the school around the corner from me, the dress code requires hijabs for 80-year-old girls.
That's sick.
8-year-old girls. And I just think it's time that we all say, you and I are not knuckle draggers. We say that this is not progressive. These people are not choosing to do this. And for the boat people who are coming over, it might be for them that they need people to be covered up to stop them being so lascivious. But that is not the British way, and that we are putting people in danger. And again, as Robert Jenrick said, he's got young daughters. He doesn't want them growing up being around people who have been caught hanging around outside primary schools.
Yeah.
This is all a political choice, and it's political weakness that we don't send these people away and make our country
the lurkers, the boatio lurkers. They love taking their positions on the park benches, watching the women go jogging past. They love sitting on the beach, getting an eyeful of the women there. Look, I'm not saying men of our own sort of kin don't do the same and enjoy ogling women, but it's just a very different way, because we're brought up with certain attitudes towards women and women having certain freedoms. It's not like going crazy as a kid in a candy store. We know the sort of unwritten rules of how you approach someone, how you talk to someone, what's too much, what constitutes harassment. And the problem is with these men from other countries, because in their mind a woman plays second fiddle, that they can do to a woman whatever they like and she has to be subservient, they've got this thing where they're just persistent. They'll come up and bother you, but so beautiful, and when you're like, oi, go, leave me alone, oh no, please, and they just follow and track and pursue and get in your face. And this is the thing, when you look at these statistics, and this is the reported rapes in Bournemouth, over 100 a year. That is ridiculous. What we're not getting in those statistics is the reported sexual harassments, the sexual assaults. For every one woman raped, all the other women living there of a certain age live in terror. So actually, you can pretty much say the entire female population of Bournemouth of a certain age has had their lives effectively ruined by government policy. Ruined. And for what? So we can pay out of my taxes, out of your taxes, for these people to have an all-inclusive beach holiday for the best part of 2 years. It makes me sick.
Yeah, exactly right. Make it make sense. I cannot understand this. The Labour government could have come in and blamed it all on the Tories, right? They could have done that. Instead, they've just doubled down on all this stuff. And so every time people who are watching this and listening to this, they hear something about the one in, one out nonsense. They hear something about, oh, tough new, this, that, and the other. It's all complete cobblers just designed to try and fill newspaper inches to distract you from the fact that they're not getting to grips with the deep reasons for this. And it's the fact that right now, even apparently, according to Dominic Cummings, if the Prime Minister were to order the Navy into the English Channel to stop these, the Cabinet Secretary, the permanent civil servant at the very top of the civil service, would be required to have the Prime Minister arrested. So what we need to do is change the law, change in what the primary legislation at the very top, debated in Parliament and rammed through, that cuts out all of the ECHR nonsense that's been on the domestic statute book for a long time, like Tony Blair's stupid Human Rights Act of 1998, as if we didn't have any human rights before Tony Blair came along. And this, it was only Russia and Ukraine and Belarus who've ever left this. Well, the Americans and the Canadians and the Japanese and the New Zealanders and all the rest, they get on off or fine without the ECHR. They seem to have a bunch of rights for themselves. We need to get all of this stuff out there and then start prioritising the safety, the prosperity, the well-being of British people, and those people like Mrs. Price, for example, who are here legally and who contribute both economically and culturally and socially, rather than the people who are coming over who, at best, want to scrounge around.
Yeah, my other ask about a brilliant word the other day. I don't know how sort of politically correct this is, but I don't care. He came up with the word rape-fugee. I was like, I like that. Going to use that one. Right, I just want to ask you another little thing here, because Sarah Pochin, who is Reform UK's MP for Runcorn, apparently spoke out of turn when it came to her party's policy when asked by Peter Cardwell on her thoughts on digital ID. Let's have a little look. We haven't got the clip there, but what we can do is tell you that she said that she is pro people having digital ID, and yet Reform's policy is anti-digital ID. Where do you stand on this one, James?
But I think there's two bits to this. One is and I'll keep the pop at Reform very brief and pleasant and good-natured, that these are the sorts of debates to be had behind closed doors. If you haven't got a policy fully fleshed out, don't go on and talk about it. You can do some kind of, we're still working on this, we're still building the policy up. But to have people have different statements in public when you're still a small party in terms of the numbers of elected officials or spokespeople is a bit amateurish. Just like, I don't know, does Reform want to have men in women's prisons? Because Big Nige said no, but then Anne Widdecombe said yes, and the new Justice Advisor said yes as well. So that stuff has just got to be worked out if they're going to be taken increasingly seriously as a policy-rich party.
Although one could sort of say that actually in other parties, what we saw the Conservatives is actively fighting over very basic ideologies, such as leaving the EU or staying in the EU, whether you're left-wing or right-wing.
And look how that hurt the Conservative Party. It's not a good idea to do this. Take it from me. I've got the grey hairs now across my beard from all of this. On the topic of the ID card itself, I do think it is an interesting debate to be had. I used to be totally vehemently against it and think that it was more evidence of Tony Blair trying to turn us into a horrible police state. unfortunately, things have got so grotty and so awful in so many ways in Britain now, with a huge number of illegal immigrants that we've talked about, many more people than we know actually are in the country, because, by the way, Blair and Brown scrapped even the exit check. So we don't actually know when people leave the country properly. We just have to kind of guess. And official statistics massively underplay it. You just have to ask Tesco how much food they sell, ask mobile phone providers how many SIM cards are active in the country, ask the water and the sewage people. There's a lot more people in Britain than we think. And one of the only ways perhaps to deal with this might be something like this. I'd like to see it
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm kind of with you.
I'm not sure.
I kind of think that if you have a digital ID card, the risk of stealth slippage, where it's all of a sudden recording data that it shouldn't be recording, is quite significant. But when I lived in Brussels, you had a residence card, which was a bit of plastic. And I kind of think if everyone had to have ID to say, yes, I'm a resident here, and it's a piece of plastic, which therefore doesn't involve them monitoring what you're buying, where you're going, and whether you smoke cigarettes or not, then I might be OK about it. James Price, thank you ever so much, my darling. Right, we're going to take a short break now, but I want your thoughts on anything we've been talking about. The number is 0344 499 1000 if you'd like to dial in and have a conversation with me. That'd be fantastic. Or you can send me a WhatsApp message on that number, or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp on that number. 87222 is the number. However, if you'd like to send a text message, write talk before you text. And back after this.
He's 59. He doesn't look it, but he's 59.
No, so he fits. By the way, Superman, I remember the black and white edition, so I'm going to age myself, Peter, before the full color Superman films. It's interesting, though, with this Gene Kane becoming part of ICE reminded me of photographs, I don't remember it myself, of when President Nixon gave Elvis Presley a drug enforcement badge, and Presley thought that would give him more right to take drugs internationally. But
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So, Bournemouth, right? I've been talking about Bournemouth myself for quite a while because I started noticing a little pattern of news coming out of Bournemouth. There was the 15-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted in the water by a man who didn't appear to hail from Britain. Then there was the woman chased in and raped in toilets by a man who didn't appear to be from Britain. And I thought to myself, something funny's going on in Bournemouth, on that beach. Looks like it's become a little bit of a hairy place for women to go and sunbathe safely. So I looked into the statistics, didn't I? And thankfully the Bournemouth Echo has done an FOI on this, and I've been able to dig deep into Dorset Police's files to find out year upon year the number of rapes that were reported to the police. Now, we always have to bear in mind when rapes are actually reported, it's not necessarily 100% of incidents that have occurred. And this doesn't, of course, involve sexual harassment. It doesn't involve sexual assault, which normally vastly outstrip and outnumber rapes in any case. Turns out that in the past 2 years, year on year, there have been more than 100 rapes reported. That is one almost every 3 days. Now, if you look back into police statistics from 10 years ago, the statistics weren't anything close to that. It was under half. So what's gone on? Why have things suddenly gone huge? Why all of a sudden from about 50 reports a year to way over 100? And here we go, in 2020, 65 reports of rapes, 97 reports of sexual assault, 12 reports of exposure and voyeurism, 16 other reports, 190 offences. And when you bring that even closer to date, so 2022, 286 sexual offences throughout the year. So we're now talking one every 1.5 days. What is going on? Well, I've had a message from a listener saying, "Morning, Alex. I'm an older lady that lives in Bournemouth, and it's got so bad now with violence, stabbings and rapes. I no longer go out on my own. I'm too frightened. The migrants sit outside their hotels. It's so intimidating. I feel like a prisoner in my own home. The poor young girls that go to Bournemouth College have to put up with the men shouting out, approaching them from the hotel right opposite. It's awful. How can this be allowed?" How can it be allowed that we allow men from very misogynistic cultures who regard women, especially non-Muslim women, as worse than dogs, to come and live rent-free, full board in a beachfront hotel where they can ogle women in bikinis and intimidate any young girl who happens to live in that town? It is absolutely disgusting. Let's speak to Michael, who's in Birmingham. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, how are you?
Well, I'm all right, thank you, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, a bit mad about the way things are going on, but you know, I mean, you've made your point about people there. Presumably, it's us white Brexiteers that are getting out of control, or is it?
Oh, it's all us. You know, we're the ones who are just racist and xenophobic. It's the far right inventing these statistics. Nothing to see here. I mean, by all means, don't defend the integrity, the innocence, and the safety of little girls. No, bow down and beatify these criminals who are breaking into the country instead.
But what I wanted to say, a deterrent factor, look, Labour won't do it, but Reform could say this, and if there's laws against it, just change the laws when they get into power. We charge our students for trying to better themselves and with student loans and get an education. Why on earth aren't we charging these migrants for their bed and 4-star keep for all the years they're waiting? And when they're granted asylum, they also get the bill for their keep that goes with that.
Well, that would be one way of going about it, although they are already billed by the people who've trafficked them over the channel, which is why so many of them work in the black market.
That's their problem. That's
well, I think in order to stop them working in the black market, you need to make sure there's not enough hours in the day for them to be entertained by going out and delivering food. I don't know why we don't essentially send them all out to scrub graffiti off walls, clean public toilets. You know,
nor do I.
Right.
But I just think that if they want to be such, contributors to society and all of that, they'd have no problem, would they, in paying back the society that's put them up in 4 or 5 star? You know, because 95% are granted asylum, aren't they? So at the point you
they shouldn't even be in a 4 or 5 star beachfront hotel. They should be in very basic accommodation, something sort of like encampments in old MOD sites, and also made to work. And that's where I'd begin. I don't know why we regard these people as so heaven-sent, so godly, so deified, so wonderful, so in need of special treatment, that they have a better existence than most of the British population.
Exactly. And the other thing I would do with these hotels as well, even though, your previous guest said that our homeless people might not want it, is I'd make them drop-in centres. So if you're homeless and you haven't got a bed for the night or you need a meal, you can go to any of these refugee hotels and they're compelled to give you a bed. Even if they have to put the immigrants 4 or 5 to a room, you're compelled for a bed and you're compelled to be given a meal to a British homeless person. And if they refuse that, they take the contracts off the security firm.
Well, it's an idea for sure. It's an idea, Michael. I mean, we just need to stop these people coming over and leeching off the state when they've got absolutely no right to be here. And we've got no sort of duty of care towards them. I don't care what their life is like back at home. That's where they should be. Just as their families, wherever they come from, don't care about what my life is like here. Michael, thank you ever so much. From Michael, let's now speak to Michelle, who's in London. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Alex. I love watching you. You really get me going. Right, 2 points I would like to make. Our seaside places, these people rely on tourism. They rely on us, to go there. We do need a break instead of being shut up and cooped down what the government want us to do, like in rabbit hutches. We do need a break. They're making everything into a cesspit. It's absolutely disgusting. But my point, what I phoned you for mainly, Alex, was this Rwanda scheme. Now, I've been thinking about this. When it went through, this had to go through the Houses of Parliament. It was ridiculed, it was stripped back, and it was an absolute nightmare. Labour done nothing to support it. Now, has this with that Macron, what Starmer has done, has this gone through Parliament?
No, of course it hasn't. That's just a deal, the bilateral deal done at state level, state leader level.
But, who is he to make that decision? The Rwanda deal was a great deal, and Conservatives, they were ridiculed, they did this, they did that. Now, we shouldn't have to accept anything that hasn't gone through Parliament.
I'll tell you what, Michelle, the thing is, if it's in the British national interest, there's a load of ne'er-do-wells, righteous do-gooders who are on the back benches or working as the Attorney General or leftist lawyers or NGOs who try and block it. If something's not in the national interest, it just gets flagged through. That's what seems to me to be the blueprint for legislation in this country. Michelle, thank you ever so much for your call. Vicky says, Alex, loving your show about these illegals. They can't possibly keep a track on who they are, as they're coming with no ID or paperwork or where they're roaming. So why don't they get them straight on a tag to keep them tracked instead of treating the British people like criminals? They keep going on about their human rights at the same time they're taking our basic human rights and freedom of speech away. That last sentence, Vicky, is important. We care more about the human rights of these migrants, and as a result, we lose ours. We lose the right to feel safe walking down the high street. We lose the right to be able to express openly our opinions on this disastrous modus operandi. Vicky, I think that's one of the best messages I've ever read out on the show. Give yourself a gold star. Right, we're going to be taking a short break now, but when I come back, we're going to find out what Benjamin Netanyahu's plans are for Gaza, because he's had a security cabinet meeting where they want a full security takeover of Gaza to end the war, a controversial policy, or what's necessary. We're going to be talking about that after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So Israel's plans to take over Gaza City are, according to our always woke Prime Minister, wrong, and will only bring about more bloodshed. So Keir Starmer has urged the Israeli government to immediately reconsider its decision. Wind your neck in, son, no one's listening to you. To further escalate its offensive in Gaza after Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet approved the plans overnight by a majority vote. Well, let's speak now to Fleur Hassan Naoum, who's the Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy and former Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. It's great to have you back on the programme, Fleur. Talk me through the thinking behind the full takeover of Gaza City.
Alex, there are no good choices here. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, Israel was pushing hard for a deal, for a ceasefire deal that would bring home 10 hostages. I mean, I myself don't understand why we were negotiating for 10 and not 20 hostages that are living, but that was the way that it was. And in fact, Hamas's hand was hardened, and I'll explain by who in a minute, and they walked away from the deal. The Americans are extremely frustrated. Witkoff, who is the negotiator between the Qataris and the Israelis, extremely frustrated with the Qataris' either inability or not wanting to bring this deal to the table. And let me tell you what hardened the hand of Hamas. The declarations, the performative, badly timed declarations of Keir Starmer, the Canadian Prime Minister, and Macron, who basically gave a gift to Hamas. They said, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to sit down and negotiate a ceasefire. All you have to do is wait till September and we'll announce Palestinian statehood. So the people who are criticizing Netanyahu today for this going all-out war are the same people that essentially gave Hamas permission to walk away from the negotiating table.
But I notice as well, and something that I don't think has had enough airtime in UK legacy media, is the fact that in response to people like Sir Keir Starmer saying we'll recognise Palestinian statehood in September come what may, Hamas turned around and said, OK, great, we want our own state as long as our capital is Jerusalem, and we won't lay down arms until that is the case. Those are the words of a belligerent, beastly, invading force. So why on earth does this government in the United Kingdom and the government of Canada and the government of France think it's OK to actually sate the hungers and the appetites of grisly Hamas in essentially wanting to invade and take over all of Israel and wipe it off the map? And when Israel just says, look, we just need to defend ourselves so we can simply exist with what we've got, it's like, oh, you can't do that.
No, all we wanted to do was secure a southern border from a genocidal terrorist threat that has already declared that they want to do this again and again. And those declarations were so counterproductive, were so dangerous. You know, I wrote and I said that essentially he's made the coming out of those hostages a lot harder. And the only thing I can say, Alex, is that it must be to pander his own parliamentarians, his own party, the Islamists that support the Labour Party today and the woke left in the Labour Party today. He's doing this for internal reasons and getting involved in a conflict he doesn't understand, and in fact making it worse. If they didn't do anything, it would be better than what they've done. They've made everything worse. They've made the hostages coming out even harder right now. They've hardened Hamas's hand not to sit in the negotiating table because all they have to do is sit and wait. And in fact, when they say that we're going to declare Palestinian state, Hamas doesn't believe in a two-state solution. What he's saying is, you know, and the irony, Alex, is, and this is irony of ironies, that the Arab League, and this is unprecedented, have come out and said Hamas cannot continue to run the Gaza Strip. Something that Keir Starmer didn't make a condition of the declaring of the statehood that David Lammy was so proud to announce to a round of applause at the UN. The British didn't make that declaration of the state conditional on Hamas actually leaving the arena. And who did? The Sunni moderate Arab countries who understand that Hamas is toxic to them, not just to us.
Well, no, exactly. He's out of step with a lot of people in the neighbourhood. And like you said, we've become the headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood in this country. We may as well just start waving the Hamas flag from the Palace of Westminster next week. That'll be up to Keir Starmer's street, I'm sure.
Although, well, they're waving them on the streets of London every Saturday.
Well, yeah, I know they are.
Too far.
Oh, I know they are. I know they are. But But one thing that is sort of a counterpoint to all of this, though, is the families of some of the hostages are concerned that if Netanyahu takes this action and seizes control of Gaza City, it could end up with Hamas murdering hostages. Do you think that that is a risk worth taking?
Well, it's a valid concern. And, you know, Alex, you're a mother, I'm a mother. And God forbid, if we were in this situation, there's no judgment for these parents for the anxiety that they've had for almost 2 years. You can't imagine a worse position to be in as a parent than what these parents are suffering. Most of them do believe that that puts their children at risk. But the truth is that the alternative at the moment is that their children languish there to death. So, like I said at the beginning, there are no good choices here. And nobody is a prophet and can know what Hamas is going to do. We can only make decisions with the information that we have at the moment. And the information we have at the moment is that Hamas do not want to negotiate a deal to release the hostages. So I do understand those parents. God forbid any of us should be in that situation. I don't judge them. I understand their anxiety, but there are no good choices.
Right. But it's what other people seem to forget all the time is it's Hamas who took the hostages. It's Hamas who's using people as pawns in their terrorist antics. It's Hamas who could release those people tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it would all end. And it would all end if tomorrow Hamas released the 20 living hostages and the 30 dead hostages for the family to give them a decent funeral. If that happened tomorrow, this would all be over.
But Israel
wouldn't have to finish.
Hamas don't ever want to see an end to the bloodshed, do they? This is the point. And I want to sort of dig into a little bit of the psychology behind this, because again, we seem to regard people in Hamas like they're British people fighting for freedom. They're not. They're members of a death cult. Death doesn't scare them. Death is something that they live for, because then they're martyred and their rewards in heaven are 72 virgins or whatnot. The meaning of life for those terrorists is almost zero, especially if those people are not Muslims, especially if those people come from who they perceive to be their mortal enemies. They don't have the same attitudes towards dignity and the preservation of life and human rights as we do in the West. So the idea that we can negotiate with them, the idea that we can bend their ear to finding some sort of reasonable outcome is dead in the water before it even begins.
I think that's what people don't realize, that here where we are, we're fighting a war with Middle East rules judged by the Western liberal camera lens. And so you're fighting a war with people who don't have value for life. Forget what they do to non-believers, Alex. They've killed more Gaza children than anything they accuse Israel of. They don't care. They use that. This is, you know, the Algerians said, we lost 1 million people for freedom. And the Gazans say, or the Hamas say, if we lose 150,000 people, it's a price worth paying. They will pay the price of other people's lives. They have zero value for life of their own people, never mind anybody who doesn't believe, and never mind Israelis or Jews. And so you're dealing with a death cult. When you look at their school books, Alex, when you look at who the role models in Britain are, you've got, you know, your fighters in wars, you've got your football players. These are the role models. In the Palestinian school system, which is partly funded by the UK government, as well as other governments around the world, their role models are martyrs. They name streets after people who've blown themselves up for the cause. They teach children that the best thing they can do with their lives is martyr themselves for the cause, and that's an aspiration. So we're dealing with a completely different mentality. And then you have the mainstream media in the West, run by woke liberals who are deluded enough to think that their values are the values of this Islamo-Nazi fascist. And they have no idea what they're dealing with.
That's a ferocious, bloodthirsty, gangster ideology. It is a death cult. You'll be pleased to know, Fleur, that here in Britain we've had our list of most popular baby names. Of course, with the boys, Mohammed comes out on top, and that's just one spelling of Mohammed, let alone all the others that seem to be knocking about. But also, for the first time in I don't know, ever probably, Yahya has turned out to be a very popular name in Britain among the Muslim community. That fills me with so much pride that Muslims up and down the country in the UK are naming their children after a terrorist monster.
Exactly. It's as if the Germans started calling all their kids Adolf after the Second World War. That is tantamount. And what the world is basically asking us to do is tantamount to asking the Germans, or letting Hitler run a small province of Germany after the Second World War. You could not even imagine doing such a thing. But why are we expected to sacrifice our children's lives for the sake of not being uncomfortable in the countries that are currently being overrun by the Islamists, being helped by the communists, which is what's happening in every single European country? The woke left are basically an evolution of Marxism, and the Islamofascists are in bed with these people, and they have absolutely no idea what's coming their way. Because ultimately, as somebody who's still British, I feel awful by what I know is coming to the UK, because I've got it on my doorstep. In the UK, I think a lot of people in the UK are waking up, and I really hope they do, because the British people have always come through for the world, for civilization, and it would be a horrible shame if this would be the third country in Western Europe that falls to the Islamists, who tell you very clearly what their plans are. They're telling you every single day.
I think we've already fallen to them, unfortunately, especially with this government in charge. Fleur, it's always great to have you on the programme. Your analysis and your way with words is utterly exceptional. It's been a privilege. Right, we're going to be taking a short break now. If you want to throw in your two-bit, though, please do. 03444991000 is the number to dial if you'd like to have a chit-chat with me, or to send me a WhatsApp on that number, or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp on that number. 87222 is the number to text. If you're going to do that, you have to write the word talk before you send your message. OK, I'm back on the other side of these short commercials.
Now, the Green Party and the Labour Party will try to make this nothing, will try to make this disappear, but people will not allow that to happen now because they've got the data. It used to be that if you said, oh, well, these particular kinds of people are doing, we all knew it was happening, but if you said that before the data was in, then you were, oh, you're a racist or you're far right. No, that stuff doesn't matter anymore because we know, the people know.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Now, we thought, didn't we, that when the Supreme Court said that's it, it's very clear that biological sex is a real thing, of course it is, and that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and whatever you want to do to your body via surgery, it doesn't magic away what you are underneath it all, based upon your chromosomes, your DNA, and what is written on your birth certificate, because that, my friends, is science. But of course, ever since that ruling, they've been at it, haven't they? The trans lobby trying to muddy the waters, trying to find little exceptions, little carve-outs, little loopholes. Well, if you've had surgery, then this. Well, it wouldn't be safe for us for that. What if someone 100% appears like a woman? You wouldn't even notice a difference. It's fine for them. We all knew that was going to happen. Or indeed, what I heard from one particular barrister who himself is trans is, well, what we need is all toilets to be unisex. No, we do not. That completely misses the point when it comes to women's integrity and safety. We don't want to share bathrooms with you, my friend. You can grow a beard. Let's speak now to Susan Smith, Director for Women Scotland. So apparently public bodies are now going to be told to ban transgender women from female-only spaces such as toilets, changing rooms, under new guidance to be published by the Human Rights Watchdog. Great. This is the guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, the EHRC, which normally you'd have all the sort of leftists in government supporting every single thing they say and do. And yet it seems to me, when it comes to human rights, this is a human right that the trans lobby just don't particularly want to abide by.
No. They've been a bit deluded because they kept saying in the run-up to this consultation, or during this consultation, that they could get the EHRC to countermand the ruling of the Supreme Court. They can't. What the Supreme Court says is the law. It's always been the law, and it means that single-sex spaces do exactly what they say on the tin. They're for that sex and that sex only. There was nothing that the Equality and Human Rights Commission could write that changed that, and now they're all having fits because they think that, you know, they could have just rewritten the law. I think they've got so used to their own version, their own preferred version of the law being accepted, that they can't quite believe now that actually that's not how the law works.
Now, I'm going to ask you something, because you know where I stand on this. I'm pretty sure you do. I'm a huge advocate for women's rights, women's safety. I've always been on the side of the TERFs. I consider myself a proud and out TERF, quite frankly. I think TERFs are some of the greatest women on this here planet Earth. But then let's come up with an idea, a theoretical concept of someone from Thailand who's a ladyboy, who, when you look at them, you just wouldn't know for the life of you that this person was born male. They've had all the surgery that one can have, so there's not a bit of male genitalia left on them, and they're so convincing as a female, they look more female than I do when I wake up in the morning, and that person now has to go and use a man's loo. Do you have any sympathy for them?
I think in practice, the very rare, because it is very rare, person who is like that, who completely passes and has had surgery, because as we know, the vast majority of these people are what we would have called in the old days transvestites. So in those very, very rare cases, I don't think anybody is going to be standing by the toilet door doing a DNA swab or checking their birth certificate. I think that, you know, we have to think about practicality and reality. In reality, somebody who passes completely and totally will be able to wander in and nobody will bat an eyelid.
Yeah, you wouldn't know, would you? That's the point. You'd have no idea.
No. So it might matter, you know, it would matter if they were being called for a screening program and they needed a prostate check or something like that. And that is, again, part of the protections for sex. But I think what this will stop, and this is why the activists are so furious, is that most of them are not in that category. Most of them, frankly, like your barrister you mentioned, they look like large blokes who put a dress on and a bit of lippy.
No, exactly. That's the thing. Women are very able to tell who's going to be a threat to them and who isn't. It's kind of woven into our biology. And if a 6'3" brute with shoulders wider than the wingspread of an albatross and a beard to rival Brian Blessed sticks on a polka dot dress and thinks he can come into our box, he's got another thing coming. What do you make of this? It feels like a little bit of a victory for our cause when woke venues at the Edinburgh Fringe are having to abide by this ruling. Apparently one such place, Underbelly Bristow Square, home to multiple small theatres, put up a sign outside the female bathroom telling attendees to use whichever toilet best fits your identity and expression. And they've been made to take it down. Ha!
Yeah, I think that signage has been there for a couple of years. And I imagine they put those toilets up, they stuck the same signage up, and then it was pointed out to them correctly that this is not lawful. And to their credit, they moved pretty swiftly to take it down. But now there's a load of other venues at the Fringe who are still doing this. So, you know, it's great that was one. And they knew, I think, they didn't have a leg to stand on, but it would be good if some of the other venues. I was in one the other day, and it's quite an old venue, and they've got very old toilets, and they'd put signs up on the doors. They got one that said gender neutral cubicles, and the other one said cubicle and urinal, and they'd taken the doors off so you could see in. And the one with the urinals were right by the door. So you're walking past and anybody can look right in and see these urinals. And we were standing waiting for the cubicle ones, and a bloke walked in and we went, I think you'll find there's a load of women waiting here. But it confuses everybody and it upsets everybody.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. It's the sort of balance on in society. Surely what you need to do is the greatest good for the greatest number of people. And having a sign which says use whichever toilet best fits your identity or expression has as a little coda to it, even if it means every single woman wanting to use that bathroom is going to be terrified, because that's the reality. That's the postscript on all of this stuff, isn't it?
And you know, you get long queues for the women's toilets, inevitably, and then there's a bloke standing in there because he's proving a point.
Yeah.
And he could easily go in the men's, but he wants everyone to know he's a woman. And he's prepared to inconvenience everybody else.
But it's more than just proving a point, isn't it? I think one thing that just we don't talk about enough, and someone somewhere has probably had the cojones to actually do some research and create some statistics on all of this, but they will be suppressed. They won't be allowed out to see the light of day. And that is the Venn diagram, the mixed up amount of people who both question their gender or seem to suffer dysphoria, and also have some pretty unique fetishes.
There's probably two camps of people. I think there are people who, the smaller camp, who do have issues around their body and often other mental health issues, and this is often the younger people, especially the young girls, and you know that's gone on for years, and they used to resort to anorexia and so on. But then you get a large cohort of, I would say, middle-aged men who have got a fetish and they are acting out their fetish. And we used to consider these people a little bit odd and creepy, and they are a little bit odd and creepy.
To put it mildly.
They're not the people who are struggling with body dysmorphia. They're the people who are getting aroused by imagining themselves to be a woman.
Oh, they're getting off on listening to women go to the toilet, some of them. That's just the truth of the matter. I'm going to say it because I like stating facts, because that is what journalism should be about. And I'm going to stick to the laws of journalism that I learnt when I trained to be one. Susan, thank you ever so much. Keep up the good fight, because it's going to go on forever, isn't it? We're going to need you being a soldier in a petticoat for many years to come. That's Susan Smith, Director of For Women Scotland. Righto. Before we go to break, I'm going to read some of your messages to coax you into wanting to send your thoughts across to me. Brian in Bedfordshire says, if we can't stop the boats once they're in the water, we need another deterrent. So how about this? Monitor the boats by drone to record all on board. Any person touching the outboard motor in any way is immediately detained and placed in secure detention, denied leave to remain for life and deported immediately. No entitlement to legal aid. Let the bleeding heart lawyers work pro bono. No benefits whilst in custody. The government can use their own secrecy rules, as with one in, one out, to save their blushes with their voter base. That could work, actually, because there's always a migrant they make steer the ship. And if everyone thought, well, if I'm the one who steers that ship, if I'm the one who controls the boat, I'm going to end up life in prison, immediately deported, there'd be no one to take the boat over the channel. I think it's quite a canny little solution there. And one of my faves, Ed, says, "Hi, Alex. I hope you're settling into your new home." Ed here from Ducklington. I can't wait to visit Ducklington. We have a hotel at the end of our village with ever-increasing numbers now and lots of push bikes and electric mopeds. What, you've got a migrant hotel near Ducklington? Don't tell me that. Do not tell me that. That better... No, don't... No. My daughter has gone to Australia for 3 weeks. I've even said, don't worry if you want to stay there. We won't be long. Ed, please don't tell me they've put a migrant hotel next to quaint, beautiful, rural Iddle Ducklington. I found out, actually, they made a migrant hotel in what used to be a live-in accommodation, a sheltered accommodation for people with disabilities, where my parents live in Gloucester, in a little suburb of wee Gloucester. They've put them there. Is there nowhere left untouched in this country? Right. Going to take a short break now, but don't go anywhere because I'm with you all the way through till 1 o'clock. I'm back just after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I don't know how you feel, but I feel like I've let off a fair amount of steam today. I don't know what's got into me. I think it's because I've been unpacking for moving house. Moving house, my word. I mean, that's a blimmin' chore, isn't it? It's great when you pretty much finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. But there was a moment about a day ago where if you'd asked me to walk from my front door to my back door, it was like doing an SAS assault course, scaling boxes, shuffling on my stomach underneath tables, you know, weaving in and out of weird packages, paint brushes, paint tins, painting sheets, dead cats, mice, a parent who's, you know, collapsed on the floor in exhaustion. Honestly, it looks like some sort of army field camp. And then after hours and hours and hours, days and days and days of sort of shifting boxes, up and down flights of stairs, carrying things. You should have seen my mum. She's 76 years old. I'd be carrying a box of books like this, right? And you put that down, you'll hurt your back. And I'm fine, Mum. It's all right. You know, I haven't been to the gym for about 5,000 years. I could do with this. The bingo wings are setting in now. I'm over 40. You put that down, you'll hurt yourself. And then she'd be there, lifting it up, running up the stairs like a mountain goat. I was like, woman, don't. Although I kind of let her, to be honest, because, you know, it did make my life easier. But honestly, it's just absolutely exhausting. And so I think it's sort of like wound me up like a coiled spring. So I've come out of the box today, even more fiery than usual. My other half even sent me a message going, my word, woman, you're a bit feisty this morning, aren't you? Oh, yeah, you better believe it. And that is set to continue because have I got a lot on my mind? Indeed, I do. And I'm going to grill who I want to grill, roast who I want to roast, say what I want to say, and state the facts that I want to state, because I don't believe in free speech being suppressed, and I certainly don't believe in the truth being sacrificed at the altar of wokery. So there you are. Right, and if you believe in the same things as me, if you follow the religion of I don't know, normality, then you can also come and pray at this church. 03444991000 is the exclusive number for congregations of brilliance. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 8722 is the number if you'd like to send me a text message. If you're going to do that, write the word talk before you write your text. And we'll be trying to read as many of your messages and take some calls in the next segment. So get those sums ready and register your interest as we speak. But for now, let us roll on to my next guest, which is Alex Wilson, AM, Reform UK London Assembly member. Good morning, Alex.
Morning, Alex. It's great to see you on such fiery form this morning.
I tell you what, you know, you get a woman like me having to do annoying, you know, daily tasks, domestic chores, and nothing grinds my gears more. I'm like a sort of angry version of that Queen video, Who Wants to Break Free. Let's talk about Rushanara Ali, because she's had to resign after basically not living by her party's own rules. Like most people in the Labour Party, it seems to me, she owns houses in London that she lets out to people. Is that some sort of qualification to be in their cabinet? Ooh, are you a slum landlord? Yes, come and join the front benches. But she's the Minister for Homelessness, which is clearly some sort of stupid invented position. Shouldn't be a ministry at all. That should be dealt with in other departments. But what do they know about cutting waste? And ironically, she's had to resign because she booted out 4 tenants who rented a house in East London. They were sent an email last November saying their lease would not be renewed and gave them 4 months' notice to leave. And then within weeks, the house was relisted with a £700 rental increase. She said that she was trying to sell it and that she was obeying by the rules. Sell it? What, you put it on the market for all of about 2 weeks? I've just bought a house. I know that that is a load of nonsense. And she's the Minister for Homelessness. She essentially made her own tenants homeless. You can't make this stuff up, can you?
No, it seems that we've now got competition for Jazz Atwell to be the most unpopular Labour MP landlord in the House of Commons. We thought he was pretty bad, and now Rushna Ali is providing him with some stiff competition for that title. But what it shows, I think, is the sheer hypocrisy that we've come to expect from the Labour government. This is, I think, the 10th ministerial resignation since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister after Labour won that general election last year. Starmer came in, he said his government was going to be a government of service. Well, we've seen, I think what he really meant to say was this government is a government of self-service. They are absolutely shocking. They're not interested in representing the people that have elected them. They're letting everybody down on so many issues, and this particular case just, again, shows the sheer hypocrisy. I know earlier on, or previously, Rushnara had spoken out against private renters being exploited and said that the government would empower people to challenge unreasonable rent increases. Yeah, they're now claiming that she hasn't broken any rules, any laws yet, but obviously we know what the government is trying to do on renters reforms and so on and so forth. And it just seems to me to be yet another example of do as I say, not do as I do. It's champagne socialism, champagne for me, socialism for everyone else. That seems to be what guides them. As I say, government of self-service, not a government of service at all.
I just come out of an idea here because, I need to do a little bit of research into how many of these Labour MPs, especially cabinet ministers, do seem to have multiple properties, because there does seem to be a vast number of them. There's Baroness Nugent of Wokeville, whatever she's called, Baroness Nugget. Starmer, doesn't he have a couple of gaffs under his belt? Lord Ali certainly does. Rushnara, of course. Why don't they be made to live by their own rules and turn all of their residences into houses of multiple occupancy for their good friends, the migrants?
Well, to be fair, they'd probably get a sort of longer, more guaranteed income if they did let them all out to Serco. But we certainly don't want that really to be happening, and I'm sure we'll discuss migrant hotels and HMOs. We'll come on to that perhaps. But no, back to this though. I've got no problem whatsoever with people being private landlords. The private rented sector is an important part of our housing market, but people do need to be treated fairly. And this case shows that this particular landlord has done the complete opposite of that, while preaching to everyone else how you should behave. And it's just not on. I think it's good that she's resigned. It's the right thing that she has resigned. But it just shows the hypocrisy that we've come to expect from the Labour government and the MPs that make it up.
And we all know how much rental prices in London have absolutely soared. It's one of the other, multiple reasons I've wanted to leave London, but one of the reasons is because my rent went up by £1,000 a month. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. But it hasn't gone up to that amount to cover off the cost of the mortgages, and we all know what Rachel Reeves has done for homeowners. It's mainly because there's just so much demand, because there's too many people who are now working in this city illegally or not working in this city. We also know that a load of social housing seems to go to people who are foreign born. Why on earth we even give social housing to someone who's not born in this country beggars belief. When I've worked abroad, if I suddenly found myself out of a job when I was living in Kenya and said, "Oh, give me a house," they'd say, "No, get a flight back home and find work there." I don't understand why so much social housing in London in particular seems to go people who've rocked up. And that this is just down to really bad management from the London Mayor, really bad management for Labour government, really bad management for Conservative government before us, where British people are back of the queue, some of them so back of the queue they're having to sleep on the streets.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think the figure is somewhere in the region of half of social housing in London is occupied by households that certainly the head of the household has been born outside this country. So that's obviously a huge issue, and the constant levels of uncontrolled migration are contributing very much to the housing crisis that we have. But also, we have to be honest, we haven't built enough housing of all types and tenures, for purchase, for rent, social, private rent, across the whole housing market. We are not building enough. We haven't built enough, and that's a failure on the London Mayor. It's a failure on the borough councils. It's a failure on national government of both Conservative and Labour persuasions. We need to get Britain building, but at the same time we do need to also get a grip on this growing population, because it is causing all manner of problems for housing, for public services, right across the board, and nobody seems to really want to wake up and deal with it.
And they certainly don't want to wake up and deal with the fact that people are breaking into this country for the purpose of taking the proverbial, because they get put up in an all-expenses-paid hotel by the beach, as is the case with 3 top hotels in Bournemouth, yards away from the Strand, or indeed in glittering parts of London like Canary Wharf. Do you have any idea how many migrant hotels are in London?
Not at the moment. I don't know. I mean, it's one of the things that I can ask. I'll submit written questions to the Mayor for the next Mayor's Question Time and get an update on this, because I think it's really important that people do know. We see that sort of popping up all over the place. The government is claiming that there are fewer hotels open now than there were. I'm not sure I believe that at all. I think it's important that we do get the up-to-date figures so people know what they're dealing with. People need to understand and appreciate what's going on in their communities. You've seen the protests. People are upset. People are very concerned about the impact on safety for their children, for their family members. And that's why people are protesting, because they're not being told the truth, or certainly how it feels. And how else do they have a way of making their voice heard? I mean, we've seen it in Epping. We've seen it with Canary Wharf. We're now seeing it Bournemouth. It's happening all over the place. People need to know the truth. They need to be taken seriously with their concerns.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me.
And of course, the other thing. I mean,
No, you carry on, Alex.
So the one aspect is the safety aspect, and we've heard all these stories of where migrants who are housing in these hotels have been alleged taking part in various sexual assaults, rapes, attempted kidnappings, even that kind of thing, which is horrific, obviously. But also there's the impact on the economy, and we're talking about Bournemouth now, hugely popular tourist destination. It has tourism is a big part of the local economy, and if firstly, these hotels are not available for people to come and stay and contribute to those the tourist economy locally. But also, if it's scaring people off, if people think, well, actually, I'm not going to go to Bournemouth next year because I don't feel I'm going to be safe there. So it has this huge knock-on effect. Similarly, with Canary Wharf, a really important engine of economic activity for London and by extension for the country as a whole. If these places are being treated in this way, that's going to have a huge impact. And God knows we need economic activity, we need growth, because everything else that the government is doing is hindering that. This seems to be yet another nail in the coffin of the British economy, and it's got to stop.
No, it is indeed. I mean, yet another nail in the coffin of the British economy. I think that coffin's about to be rolled onto those little casters before it gets sent down to the below where it's set on fire. We'll find out in September, won't we? But let's talk about Sir Keir Starmer's utterly ridiculous one in, one out scheme, because it isn't, is it? At the very best, it's 17 in and 1 out. And yet, on top of all of this, what we have found out is France won't share any data with us of the people who are coming over. Well, they don't know because they're just like being piled into boats. So we don't know whether these people are criminals, terrorists, sex offenders, drugs lords, or, Lord knows who. We have to give all the information to France so they can pick and choose. They can handpick the people they take back from Britain. So if there is the odd character on a dinghy who happens to be a top oncologist who's come over to the UK for the right reason, France gets to steal him and say, yeah, we'll have him. He might work in a hospital. But the data sharing doesn't go the other way. But it also seems to me, therefore, if you don't want to be deported back to France, the best thing you can do to secure your stay here is to commit a crime.
Yeah, which is absolutely outrageous. I mean, I think Keir Starmer said that the time for gimmicks is over. Well, he's clearly gaslighting the entire British public when he says that, because this is very much a gimmick. You say 1 in, 1 out. As you said, it's not 1 in, 1 out. It will be capped at around 50 people per week, even if that happens, and even if they don't engage in various legal challenges to stop being deported. So it's a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of the problem that's still coming in. We have record levels, I think 25,000 plus this year already, which is, I think, 50% ahead of where we were this time last year. And this scheme itself is only going to be time limited to, I think, is it 10 or 11 months? It will come to an end. So even if it's successful on its own level, it won't then continue. And you're right that the French can pick and choose who they take back. There will be legal challenge available to those that are put on this programme. And as the final insult to injury, we have to pay all the transport costs in both directions. It's crazy. This is not the answer. The answer needs to be something much more powerful, much more all-encompassing, starting with a very, very clear direction that if you enter this country illegally, you will not be given asylum, you will not be allowed to stay, you will be deported. And if we need to leave the ECHR to do that, which I think we do, then that has to be the first thing that a new government, a reform government, will do when it comes to power in 2029. And the longer this goes on, the more likely it will be that a reform government will come into power, because people are getting more and more frustrated with the way that not just the Conservatives in the last 14 years, but now the Labour in the last 14 months have treated the British people with contempt. They've got to go. There's only one party that's going to replace them, and that's going to be Reform.
I mean, it seems to me this mad policy of letting the French rummage around among the people who've broken into our country illegally to see if there's anything of worth there is a bit like lobbing your bin bags into the neighbour's garden and then saying, oh, sorry, I think I might have chucked out something that I could quite do with. Do you mind if I come and get it back, please? I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. I've got to ask you one final thing, Mr Wilson here, because there seems to be a little bit of discordance in your party when it comes to whether digital ID is a good thing or a bad thing, because Sarah Pocham was being interviewed by Peter Cardwell yesterday, and this is what she said.
I personally don't have a problem with an ID card. I don't see what the issue is. Most of our information now is on our smartphones anyway.
What's the Reform Party policy on it? Your leader seems to be saying one thing, you seem to be saying something else, Sarah.
I don't think we have a clear policy at the moment. If we do, then I don't know what it is. But the point is I'm giving you my opinion.
Sure.
Nigel might have a different opinion, and when I chat to him next, I'll bring it up and see what the right thing to not what we are saying.
Sure.
But I'm just giving you my opinion.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, I just got to ask you this. Is this sort of honest politics? So she did say, I personally. She made it clear that that is her own thoughts on the matter. She didn't say it is party policy and therefore get it wrong. Peter Cardwell seems to think it is party policy and therefore she's not singing off the same hymn sheet. Is this discordance or is this just actually, oh, well, that's fine. In a political party, people can all have their own opinions?
I think it's a mixture of both. So in a party, people do have a range of opinions. Sarah's made it very clear that that was her personal opinion. My personal opinion is the opposite to Sarah's personal opinion. I'm very much against any kind of compulsory ID because we have more than enough ways of proving who we are already.
Where does the party
it's unnecessary.
stand on this?
It's costly. And can you really trust government IT projects with more of our data? I certainly don't. Very, very hesitant to give any more data than they already have.
Where does the party stand on this? Is there a clear policy? Because if there is, Sarah didn't seem to have got the memo.
Yeah, I think that the party's position is pretty much where I am.
So you
which is we don't
the
think it's
party
necessary.
position
Well, yeah, look,
is where,
we're
so is
4
there
years
a
away
clear
from an
policy?
election. We're 4 years away from the next election. We don't have a manifesto in place at the moment. No party does. I mean, the only party that should have clear policy at the moment on everything is the government. Obviously, we're not the government yet, but by the time the next election comes around, we obviously will have a fully detailed platform on all of these issues. I'm pretty confident that our position will be that we don't believe in this because it's not necessary, it's costly, it gives more control, more data in the hands of the public sector, the institutions of government that we don't really trust to deal with it sensitively and safely. I don't see what the problem is.
Alex, fair enough. I think that's a reasonable answer. If you don't have a clear policy, you don't have a clear policy. Why should you have a clear policy if you don't have a manifesto yet? I suppose one would say that is perfectly fair. OK, Alex Wilson, Assembly Member in London for Reform UK. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Do you want to make like Alex and join me? Because you can. You can be a guest on the show. That's right. You can phone this number 0344 499 1000 and let me know your thoughts. I can grill you if you like. I can interview you. I can put you through your paces. Oh, yeah, if you're a sucker for punishment. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message or indeed leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 8722 is the number to send me a text message. If you'd like to do that, you've got to write the word talk before you text. And I'm back with you after this.
Video that you saw where they was dressed up, we discussed consent, we discussed how to choke properly, how to slap properly.
How to choke. See, when you're having conversations about how to choke properly.
But if I'm not doing that, all those people are going to watch online is a video where they've seen a girl get really roughly choked and it's not been discussed at all. So if that guy then does it to another girl who's freshly 18, how is he not going to hurt her? How does she know to speak up? So I am doing good for society because if I wasn't doing these sex tapes that show more of the educational side, I mean, the parents aren't teaching them.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and welcome back to the show. Now is the moment where we go to you and hear your thoughts and feelings on all the stories we've been discussing, or perhaps stories we haven't been discussing. I don't know. I'm up for anything, me. Let's speak to Marie, who's in Herne Bay. Good morning, Marie.
Hiya, you right?
I'm all right, my love. How are you, darling?
Yeah, well, I'm fuming. I'm spitting feathers, to be honest. Monday night, what is, we've got a church in our town and it's been made into flats, luxury flats.
Right.
But they haven't been able to sell them because they're too expensive.
Right.
The Monday night, in the middle of the night, 3 vans turned up with a load of people who we know, and it is full of them.
No.
In the middle of and it's a church.
Oh, don't. That actually makes me sick to my stomach. I hate it when I see wonderful estate of the Church of England converted into flats. First of all, I think these should be protected buildings. I don't mind them becoming a community centre or a library or somewhere people can gather, or even somewhere where the community can go and have a coffee if they're not going to put bums on pews. But when they're turned to luxury flats, it upsets me anyway. And now you're telling me that these men, who probably are largely from Muslim countries, are now living in luxury apartments in a converted church?
Yep. Yeah. Reform was outside there Tuesday or Wednesday filming, saying, we've heard about this. I tell the whole town is turned really bad.
Honestly, you're pulling my chain. This is really, really angered me. Luxury flats, they didn't get sold because they're priced too high. And that's where they put these ne'er-do-wells.
Yeah.
Do we know what they are? I mean, are we talking about, because we're saying, oh, well, it's for children and families, it's for the children. Is it the usual suspects?
Yes, I haven't seen no women or no children.
Oh, my God. And how many are there to a luxury flat? Do you know?
I don't know. I know it's quite big. So I don't know, but all I heard, and then to top this up, I know a few taxi drivers, they had to take them, go there the next day, take them to look at furniture and bring them back, and the government paid their taxes.
You what? So given an apartment, they get to go pick out their bits and bobs. They get to, oh, no, I don't like that cabinet. It's not really to my aesthetic.
Yeah.
Oh, why don't we just send me over to give them a sponge bath later in the day? Honestly, Marie, I can't believe that has really stuck in my core. And this isn't just going to be a one-off in Herne Bay, is it? This is up and down the country. This is everywhere. These blimmin' people are getting whatever they like.
Well, put it this way, in Herne Bay, if you wanted a nice haircut, you could get one. If you wanted your car washed, you could get one. And if you wanted your nails done, you can get them done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because these people be living in luxury apartments and earning a bob or two on the side to pay off their traffickers. Oh, Marie, keep your eye on that for us, will you? Go and be vigilant. Give us reports on what's going on. I especially want to know how these people are behaving. And keep us updated, because I think everyone, especially the people of Herne Bay, have a right to know quite who is being lauded in their community and given all these wonderful privileges like luxury flats in converted churches. Makes me sick. Thank you for telling me, though, Marie. Let's speak now to James, who's in the wonderful town of Weston-super-Mare. Good morning, James.
Hi there, Alex. How are you?
I'm all right, my darling. I love Weston.
So do I.
Proper
but
place.
Hopefully we can keep it Weston for a bit longer. I got an idea of how we can sort of return the boats back to France, I think. So, look, I'm a Brexiteer for starters, but I'm happy to work the EU in this area. I don't know why we just don't turn around to you and say, listen, we will help you set up border forces all along the weak points of the Mediterranean. You can employ ex-veterans like myself from all the different EU countries on a week-on, week-off rotation basis, something like that, and we will help you defend and look after Europe. But if you do not meet us in the middle and help us do that, we'll have no choice but then to push every boat back to France. So we're giving them an ultimatum. And we need to make every member of the EU, every person like me and you, prepared that Britain is able to help the EU. If you don't, this is why we're pushing the votes back to France.
Well, this is, I mean, our babber, James Price, said at the start of the programme that apparently if the Prime Minister asked the Navy to block the boats, that the Chief of Staff, whatever it is in the Cabinet Office, the civil servant, can call for him to be arrested or something under UK law.
I did hear that, but if we approach the EU first with an ultimatum, saying we're happy to help all of Europe, then you're giving us no choice.
But well, mind you, that's what the EU have been calling for. Everyone's got to take their fair share of migrants, and you've got, because of your money, because of the number of your population, you've got to take more than most. I mean, I think the easiest way to get the EU to do what you want is the sort of thing that Donald Trump is doing. As a free nation, we should be able to go, France, you know you like selling your wine and cheese to Britain? Turns out we're going to whack 50% tariffs and all that, because we make our own cheese and it's the best in the world. What's more, we make our own wine these days, and don't you worry, we got Commonwealth countries like Australia and New Zealand who make a decent
100%.
bottle.
And we could turn that into the next Europe. That's just
we could just be like,
the Commonwealth. Again.
Put your grapes up your backside and take the migrants back while you're at it. But
we're making good wine over here now anyway, so...
Also, there's one card which we should have played, which is the fish card. Oh, nothing gets the EU more agitated than access to our waters. And yet, when that Brexit deal on our fishing waters coming back under our control, which was sort of like, you know, brought down incrementally, less and less catch for the EU, when we got to the end of that and the EU said, oh, we still want access to your waters, can we have 5 years? So Keir Starmer said, you can have another 4. And they said, no, 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 no. We really want 5 more years of access to your waters. And Starmer went, oh, go on, then you can have 12. I mean, the man couldn't negotiate his way out of a paper bag. He's an absolute moron.
It's funny when how it comes to all the fish in the channel, the French and the EU own it, but when it comes to every migrant, we own them.
Oh, it's just, honestly. And I've got to ask you something, though, as you're in a wonderful Western-super-Mare, where I had many a donkey ride when I was a little kid on those lovely sticky sands, if you can call them sands, of our, what is it, a coastline so much? The estuary,
from the estuary,
the Severn estuary, the beginning of the greatest river on earth. You've got plenty of seaside hotels in Western-super-Mare. Do you have our good friends who've come over on dinghies in those hotels?
I think we're quite lucky. We have had Labour take over since the election over here, and we're now a town of sanctuary, apparently. We've had a few little protests, but I don't think we're evaded like Bournemouth and all that at the moment. There's one place I think called the Savoy that is a few lurking around, but it's not as bad as other places at the moment. We're still quite... I think we're a bit too far over the busing to this way at the moment, so I think we're kind of safe.
Right, you've got to keep the West Country safe. Proper people in the West Country.
Right. The only place I feel, because I work in London and I'm a minority up there, it's the only place that I still feel is quite Britain. You're probably your Norfolk, your Cumberland, your Gloucesters, but, you know, we got to,
Gloucester's. I mean, I'm from Gloucester, I'm born and bred, and it's changed, mate. It's changed. It ain't what it used to be, that's for sure. It's migrant central now in Gloucester. But other parts of Gloucestershire are still untouched. It's like going back in time, back when we had a high-trust society.
Their communities aren't there, so they just want to go where their communities are. When they've got their own little bathrooms, when they've got their own little Baghdad, that's where they want to go.
That's true. But not long before they start building them in your parts. That's the risk, isn't it? James, thank you ever so much. Lovely speaking to a West Country man. It always is. We're going to take a short break now, but when I come back after the break, we're going to be talking to the brilliant Mesa Gifford, who's a former British volunteer fighter in Ukraine, amongst other places. He's a proper hardened mercenary, about what is going on with Russia and Ukraine and whether Trump can talk some, well, I was going to say sense into Putin, whether he can make Putin back down. That is coming up after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and welcome back to the show. Now, one of Trump's big promises before he became American president is he would stop the war in Ukraine overnight. He played hardball with Zelensky while seemingly buttering up to the bloodthirsty tyrant in the Kremlin. But you give someone like Putin an inch and he's going to want to take a mile. So then he tried to dial it up a bit with some tough talk and threatened Russia with all sorts of sanctions, threatened countries that are still buying Russian stuff like gas with sanctions, and told Putin he better get round the negotiating table and sort things out. He even sent nuclear submarines into the vicinity. But apparently, Vladimir Putin doesn't want to play ball. Surprise, surprise, because Russia yesterday appeared to shoot down Donald Trump's three-way peace summit with Ukraine. Let's speak now to Mesa Gifford, former British volunteer fighter in Ukraine. Mesa, I don't know how America seemed to get this so wrong and seemed to think that Putin is someone you can rationalise with.
No, well, he's a populist dictator, essentially. He's someone who's rolled back any semblance of democracy in Russia. He aspires to recreate the old Soviet empire. He's described its fall as one of the worst curses, one of the worst things that's ever happened to the world, one of the greatest tragedies in the world. And Ukraine very much is one of the first countries on his list that he wishes to reincorporate into a so-called Greater Russia. The trouble is, Trump has been very naive over the last few months in his dealings with Putin. He thinks he could have some sort of personal relationship with him. But the trouble is, although personal relationships are important in international politics, they absolutely do not trump what Putin sees. Putin sees as the fundamental and vital interests of his country. So Trump has been played on this one, and hopefully he's going to get a good deal once he's woken up.
Well, what is it that you think America should be doing now regarding Russia? Because the thing is, Putin started something. He ain't going to want to back down now and go, well, that didn't work out. That's taken longer than expected. We didn't achieve what we set out to do. I'm happy to walk away with some egg on my face and just take this bit and that bit. I don't think we should give him any bits anyway. Putin's hinted talks could take place in the UAE instead. I mean, is that at least some sort of progress?
Well, the trouble with politicians is they're so indecisive. It's one of the flaws in our Western democracy. They're constantly thinking of the next election. They're constantly thinking about public opinion and all the rest of it. What we should have done from the very beginning is think to ourselves, what is the outcome that we want to see in Ukraine? What is good for Britain? What is good for Europe and the rest of the world? And if we had made that decision and that determination nice and early and said, right, we're going to give the Ukrainians absolutely everything they need to defeat Russia on the battlefield. We're going to sanction Russia back to the Stone Age and actually try and really cripple their economy. Then this war would have stuttered out a long time ago. If we had, and hopefully we still do, if we went after India and China that are buying this blood oil that's coming out of Russia, again, it would reduce the amount of income coming into Russia, and it means they won't be able to prolong this war. So it's just about being really serious about the plans we put in place to actually do something. Now, hopefully, Donald Trump has woken up. Hopefully, this negotiation, this sort of deal will be done eventually. But I'm not very optimistic, because as far as Putin's concerned, this war could actually bring his government down, essentially.
It's not the problem that we're all kind of indirectly buying Russian gas and Russian oil, because other countries are buying it at cut price from Russia and then refining it, and then we're buying it off them. Was it a canny move, at least by Trump, when it came to his trade deal with the EU, to force them to buy their fossil fuels from America?
Yes, in many respects. I mean, Europe had to diversify away from Russian oil and gas a long time ago. In fact, Donald Trump warned Europe. There's this horrible scene, you can find it on YouTube, of Donald Trump in the UN calling out Europe, in particular Germany, and it is absolutely soul-destroying to see the German diplomats laughing at Trump, because I disagree with Trump on a lot. I think Donald Trump has actually been very damaging for America. However, on that occasion, he was absolutely right. And seeing the bureaucrats in Berlin laughing at the ignorant, stupid Americans, as far as they were concerned, really sort of ground my gears. But anyway, either way, Britain and Europe have to diversify away from oil and gas. We do need to be investing in our military-industrial complex because Russia has proven itself time and time again to be a huge threat to us. We've seen our prices shoot up, our bills shoot up. We've seen Russian tanks on our borders. So it's about time we actually start facing the reality, Donald Trump's reality, of a world that is a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more not based on a world's international order based on law and human rights, etc. It's actually a place of big powers now. And we need to, as Britain, a post-Brexit Britain, we need to be focusing on British power and exerting it with determination and with guts all around the world.
Right, you don't want people around the world to love you and think you're kind and cuddly and aren't Britain lovely. You want people to fear you. You want people to respect you, particularly your enemies. Now, I worry when it comes to
By the way, we've earned that respect. We've earned it with our blood. In the Second World War, we didn't have to defend Poland. In the First World War, we didn't have to defend Belgium. In Ukraine, we didn't have to stand up and fight not alongside them, but support them in the way that we did. Britain has a great reputation for standing on principle. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that. So getting that principle back and exerting our voice around the world in a determined way is something that we really need to make sure we do.
I like that. That's a good, strong, patriotic and common sense talk. What is life like in Ukraine? How is the war effort going? Because I think we've got a bit of war fatigue now, don't we? It doesn't sort of, yes, we're hearing about peace talks and negotiations and Trump and Putin, but we're not all too often hearing about how the Ukrainians are doing, how the war is going.
Well, it's a bit of a stalemate at the moment. The Russian summer offensive has largely pettered out. They lost 20,000 men and probably gained about a foot of territory. That's an exaggeration, but literally only a few villages were taken this summer. This war has stagnated. Vladimir Putin is desperate to make progress because as I said before, as far as he's concerned, this could mean the end of his presidency, his regime, his gangster regime. So the ordinary Ukrainians are very much tired. They do want to see an end to this war, but as Ronald Reagan said, you can't. The fastest way to peace is just simply surrender, and Ukraine is just not going to do that. There's far too many patriots for that.
And why should they? Why should they surrender when they've been invaded by a monstrous neighbour? I wonder how the Russians are thinking about this. Of course, they're, just get spoon-fed propaganda from all the state-backed channels. But I wonder how many Russians are sort of looking at the body bags piling up.
Well, the Russians, it is a very restricted society. The only way you can get the internet or free internet, any version of it, is to get a VPN in Russia. The Russians, incidentally, are actually quite cracking down in a huge way on freedom of speech online. It never really existed. It's the old sort of Adolf Hitler technique. In a Nazi Germany technique whereby the newspapers almost self-censored themselves because they knew they didn't have to. There's no law passed saying that they didn't have to say a certain thing, but they knew that if they did, they'd end up in deep trouble. And it's very much what Vladimir Putin's Russia's like. But incidentally, they now are starting to pass those laws and they are becoming more authoritarian and exerting themselves. So, and also the Russian people, because it's never been a democracy, their sort of culture has changed because of that. They self-censor themselves. There's such thing as doublespeak, where you try and give your opinion, but you do it in such a way that you don't criticize the state or the state's narrative. So there's a lot of self-censorship. There's a lot of frustration. And if I'm honest, if you truly got to the very heart of what the Russian people wanted, they'll want peace. They'd want economic prosperity. They want a future. And Putin is robbing them of that as much as he is robbing the Ukrainians.
Tell you what, Mace, I bet there are a lot of people listening to what you're talking about, the self-censorship and media automatic self-censorship and the government cracking down, coming out of department now to monitor it, thinking it's all right, we're a step ahead of Putin here in the UK, aren't we? Thank you ever so much for coming on the programme, Mesa. When are you due to go back out at any time soon?
Not yet. I'm actually finishing off a book, and I'll have to come on and I'll have to tell you all about it, but not for now. But I might go back very soon to deliver some humanitarian aid, which I'm focusing on at the moment.
Yeah, you're an incredible man. Your life story. I mean, if they still had that Michael, who gave the big red book? Oh, This Is Your Life. Yeah, I was trying to think of
This
who
Is
the
Your Life,
host
this
was. Michael Aspel, wasn't it? Yeah, if he was still knocking about, he should get your big red book together, because you've definitely lived more lives than most of us put together. Mason, thank you ever so much for coming on the programme, and definitely do come on when that book is finished, and I'll see if I can dig out some sort of file and get some old school teachers and school friends to dish the dirt on your youth. Right, we're going to spend a little time now running some commercials so I get paid, but don't go anywhere, because you want to hear about the doom-laden projections for the British economy, don't you? That's right, it's not actually far away now that we get Rachel Reeves' autumn budget. We're almost nudging up to midway through August, aren't we? And she's going to be getting ready to carry her little red briefcase into the Commons, beaming away with her hijab-like hairstyle as if she's saved the country of all of its financial woes, when frankly she's probably dug the hole even deeper. And I want to know how long it's going to be until we have to go to Ms. Christine Lagarde at the IMF and say, please, can you write us a cheque? We're going to be speaking to Justin Urquhart-Stewart after this break.
What do you feel about ID cards, digital ID cards? Is that something that Reform UK would support?
Well, look, I personally don't have a problem with an ID card. You know, I don't see what the issue is. Most of our information now is on our smartphones anyway.
Can we trust the system, though?
Well, what more? How much more could we be at risk? As I say, all of our information is out there in a cloud, in the ether, whatever you want to call it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. You'll be pleased to know that we're probably hurtling at a startling rate towards some sort of bankruptcy or else swinging cuts, which the Labour Party aren't really in the mood to do. Their backbenchers will never allow it to happen. So that means Ms Reeves is going to come and ransack us, the hard-working taxpayers of this country, for even more money to pay for Ed Zero, to buy wimwoms and solar panels from China, and to obviously stick a load of randos who've come over on boats in four-star hotels. Hurrah! Life is great in Britain, isn't it? Well, let's find out quite how dire our economics are by speaking to Justin Urquhart-Stewart. Hello there, Justin.
Hello, Alex. Nice to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you. Now, I've been informed that you don't have a cat around because you're on holiday.
Well, not so much holiday. I was giving a talk here. I'm in Jersey at the moment, and yes, cat-free zone at the moment. They're waiting for me to return. I don't think I fed them.
Oh, what? I hope your muggies are at least being looked after, or else mousing well.
Yeah.
Good. Right, they're doing hard work, and there's no doubt, actually, come September, because they're hard-working moggies, Rachel Reeves is going to want to tax them.
Oh, there's nothing else she can have a go at, I suppose, to have a cat tax. But look, at the past week, remember, we had people saying that actually we might even have a tax on savings. We've been encouraging people to save for years, but then you might have to do that. Why? Well, because actually they've frozen our allowances so many years that actually people find that their income, albeit rather mean income, from their savings they've worked over the years, and often these are people not fabulously wealthy. They've done what they should be doing, saving for their old age and for the pension, and then they find themselves in a position they pay more tax. It is ridiculous. Actually, what we do know is if you encourage the economy to actually then give people more confidence, there's something called the Laffer curve, which is anything over 50% of your income goes in tax, then actually people work really, really hard actually to not pay tax. Anything below that, and these people will sort of accept it. They're quite happy to pay tax. Not happy, but they'll go along with it. If you overtax it, you're actually going to find yourself in a position where it's not just a brake on the economy, you'll break the economy.
Indeed. I mean, actually, looking at the clock, I'm in the tax-paying part of the show now, aren't I? I always like to say when it gets to about 11:30, I'm working hard in this studio to make sure somebody who wants to sexually assault me has a lovely hotel room in the Britannia in Canary Wharf, and I hope they're thoroughly enjoying all of my hard work on their behalf so they can live a better life. But something
You'll have your lovely time in Gloucestershire. It's nice, lovely and green there. I suspect if you go to the Prime Minister's office at the moment, all you'll find there is probably advanced mould. There's no sign of it. It's green anywhere.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, where I now live is surrounded by cows, for now, until Ed Zero gets his mitts on those fields. But for now, at least, my neighbours are bovines, which is really nice. Now, something that wasn't widely reported in the press was a little tidbit from the IMF. And the IMF said to the UK along the lines of, look, you're not doing well, are you? Things aren't looking pretty good for the UK economy, so you're either going to have to increase tax, scrap the NHS, but by the way, well done on the welfare cuts. Now, this was before the welfare cuts didn't actually pass through government, so one assumes that the call to either scrap the NHS, which ain't going to happen, is it? Although it does seem to be scrapping itself by the fact nobody can get an appointment. That we're kind of left with one choice, which is she's going to have to come after some sort of tax on us.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you've been talking about the IMF. Mrs. Urquhart Stewart, when we had the election, and she's a financial journalist, and turned around and said, I wonder how long it's going to be when they're going to start talking about possibly having to apply to the IMF again. It was almost laughable at that stage. But actually, over the past few months, yes, that's where we are heading. So the position they've got to try and do now is get the economy growing. And you don't do that just by borrowing and spending more. First of all, what you can do is actually get some confidence back in the economy. There's no shortage of money. There is loads of money around. What we haven't got is proper plumbing, because the government keeps interfering with it, to actually be sure that there are incentives for that money to be invested in our nation, and also help the major employer in our country, which is small companies. We set up more businesses in this country than France and Germany, but we're very bad at actually financing them to grow. So we have all sorts of incentive schemes like enterprise investment schemes, which cost the government nothing because they're guarantees. So only if things go wrong, well, they have to pay some money up for it. We could then do that regionally as well, as we used to do. We used to have 45 stock exchanges in this country. You don't need many more silly gits and red braces. But actually, we don't even have a proper stock exchange at the moment. Primary purpose of that is to raise capital for business in the most cost-effective manner possible. And that's not what we're doing. We've got some great areas of positive potential growth in terms of our tech hubs. Go to the universities, you'll see their tech centres. They've all got nicknames like Silicon Glen, Silicon Fen, Silicon Gorge, Silicon Implant. No, that's not right. But all these other ones there, and they breed, and they spin out sub businesses. But unfortunately, our dear colleagues in America then come over and buy them, and so we lose those ones. So the key word to this is confidence. We've got the money now. Make sure actually the government actually doesn't interfere with it. Give people the incentives by way of tax breaks actually to put money in. Don't have a wealth tax. Make sure you've got a method of actually creating more wealth. Then you can tax it when you created the wealth, not the other way around.
Yeah, love the millionaires. Don't hate them and drive them out. Invite them in their droves.
Absolutely, and they come in, and the system we had before, whatever political party you were with, you actually saw more wealth being created and more wealth actually then being spent, and also not all in the southeast. A lot of these tech centres are all over the place, and sometimes the most unlikely bits where you think, surely they haven't got a tech centre there. But some really exciting areas. I've seen developments in Belfast there, and new businesses. But yes, I could say there are probably about 60 or 70 of these hubs I point out. Give them the regional incentives there, again, guarantees, no money. And it's amazing how that will change people's attitudes. A bit of confidence to have the courage to say, I'm going to set up a business and I'm going to actually try to employ some people and we're going to make some money. It'll be hard work doing so. And when we make money, heaven forbid, people are earning money, so they pay tax on VAT and also corporation tax, which frankly should be reduced anyway. But what we can do here is actually make it an encouraging economy where people actually want to participate in it.
Problem is, though, that is obviously what we should be doing. We can shout about it until the cows come home to Alex's nearby fields. But that's not really in the Labour Party's DNA. And I can't imagine for any minute that Rachel Reeves is actually going to announce that. I think I was listening to something the other day and I heard good old Gordon Brown, him of the weird side mouth breathing fame, came up with some sort of brilliant idea to tax something really weird so that they can actually lift the cap on two-child benefit. And you think, really? We want to just start lobbing out more benefits, do we? I don't think we're in a position where we can do that.
No. And so what you've got to be able to do is go to the hot spots that we've already got and you encourage them to do so. Now, if you can do that and therefore you'll find more tax money coming, but also bear in mind, we've got all this debt we've got. If you look at the people who actually own the debt, a third of our government debt is owned by us or by the British government, because of what we had with when we had the getting us out of the banking crisis, and we had the method of being able to have further investment by the Treasury, effectively by issuing gilts and then actually being bought in. So the government effectively now gets about £23 billion a year in terms of dividend coupons from itself to itself. You couldn't make this up, could you? But that's the position we find ourselves in. So actually, if you actually cut out the debt we actually owe and the debt we actually owned in terms of, because it's in government name, you actually cut off an awful lot of people saying you borrowed too much. You could bring that level of borrowing
so we could
down
essentially
really
we could just write off a third of our debt because it's debt that we owe to ourselves.
Yeah, well, in theory, yes, you can. Now, you wouldn't want to scare the horses and do that immediately, but over time, yes, that's what you do. Because imagine it, two sides of the balance sheet. I owe this amount of money, and I've got an asset over here. Actually, well, the reason I can actually now probably go and borrow some more because I've got a good asset. And so you can actually reduce your costs there. So I think, actually, what actually she should be doing, she's got one chance, I think, and one more bullet left. It was the old British economist, John Maynard Keynes, who at the end of the Second World War, where we really were in deep trouble with debt with that, and the Americans weren't being wildly helpful. But his phrase was, when the facts change, I change. What are you going to do? So she could actually turn around now and say, actually, the facts have changed. Things have, since we took over, it hasn't been a success, but actually, therefore, we're going to have to change policies now. And yes, you'll go choose them going against your manifesto, but that's her way out. That's the best excuse she's got. Now, once you've done that, then you can actually start being creative over your taxation. Why don't you create an incentive for it? For example, actually, if you're going to pay more tax, we'll give you X percentage off your inheritance tax for the rest of your family. Being able to do that. So it turns a negative into a positive. You're not giving away free money. What you're doing, though, is those who can participate, and we're recognising them in terms of some future award.
Now, most people, when they're speculating, if they're trading or they're, doing stuff in the City of London that I don't understand because it involves numbers and spreadsheets and big screens with even more numbers on, they try and predict what's going to happen in order to bet on markets. You've come up with some very good policy ideas, things that Rachel Reeves could do in September, which could start to alleviate some of the pain and potentially even start pointing the ship in the right direction. But if you were to be investing in UK PLC, what percentage chance would you put on the fact that Rachel Reeves is actually going to do something dramatically different?
Yeah, right. Well, two things there. First of all, should you invest in UK PLC? The answer is yes, because actually when you're investing, it's not just a matter of your stocks and shares going up or down, hopefully up. Actually, the real benefit are the compounding of dividends over time. And you do that, over 10, 20, 30 years as if you're doing a pension. That's how you grow your wealth. If you actually want to do it short term, well, that's why we have horse racing. And go and have a flutter that way, and you'll lose your money quite quickly doing so. Now, will she actually then have the courage to be able to say, right, that's gone wrong, the facts have changed, now I'm going to come up with something which is going to be acceptable to the city, and not just the city with people with red braces, but the people who are doing the investing internationally as well as domestically, and be able to create that vital word of confidence. So now we can actually see, have a target. What she's got to do is balance the books in terms of the amount of money coming in, going out. Don't worry about the interest. That can be covered in due course. And the last Tory, they go back to the days of the coalition. That's what they said they were going to do. And they did. They shouldn't have used the word austerity because it's got all sorts of connotations. But over the period during that time, they never actually blew their horn about it. They did balance the books. That's without the interest on the debt. You add that to it, now it's not quite as pretty. So we can do it. Now, we're making still a lot of stuff. There are three numbers worth remembering. 6, with the world's 6th largest economy. 9. Manufacturing. We don't do manufacturing anymore. Yes, we do. We're the world's 9th largest manufacturer. Exports. Well, we used to do exports, but not so much. Yes, we do. We're the 15th largest exporter in the world. We must be doing something right here. And so what you need to do then is give the confidence that actually the economy will be recovering. And then when there's overseas investors or domestic investors say, yes, I will be investing, not betting all on one company or anything like that, but in the economy overall, because we have the ability to be able to develop. Support Britain, not by way of a charity, by actually making sure the money in your pension schemes and things like that goes to those growth areas that we need. Now also go back to the regions and you have to say to the regions, don't worry about everything being centralised in London because they overcharge for everything. Start introducing regional investment bonds for their infrastructure. For instance, Newcastle, they've been trying to actually have a dual carriageway right the way across to Carlisle and then over to the ferries going to Ireland. And you get halfway along Hadrian's Wall, it turns into single file. These things are vital. Don't wait for the government to do it because they won't do it. Do it locally and people will invest in it locally and they get some returns for it. And what happens? The economy improves with it as well.
I love the fact, actually, if you drive from Carlisle to Newcastle, which I've done many times before, you get halfway across and when they were building that road, there's a farmer's house in the middle of it because he's like, I'm not moving. And it goes either side of the house. It's brilliant. It's so stubborn and British. But anyway, there we have it. It's always great speaking to you, Justin. You're always so positive. You have the solutions to many of our problems. Can you just do me a favour? When you come back from Jersey, make your way straight to Downing Street, would you? Pin Rachel Reeves into a corner and go, now listen here, love. I can save your job. This is how, because then she might actually prick her ears up. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, thank you ever so much. Glorious speaking to you as per usual. Right, we're going to take a short break shortly, but when I come back, you'll be pleased to know that Kev and Alex ride again. It's what we now do on a regular basis on a Friday because, hey, we were the dream team back when we were in those posh studios downstairs ranting at the world together, and we like doing it. So we're going to continue ranting at the world every Friday. We're going to be picking over the big stories of today with the same sort of misanthropy as you've had for the past 2 hours. See you in a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, you know when you get on a train these days, when you book your train tickets, if you're like me, not like my mum, she likes going to the station and she likes speaking to a human and getting a bit of paper, but, you know, she's 76. If you're like me, you book it online and then you have your little QR code on your phone and blip that at the ticket barrier. Well, it turns out the people on the trains who inspect tickets want to get paid extra money for scanning something from your phone instead of scanning a bit of paper, right? They've called it technology payments. They want extra money for technology payments after a surge in the use of smart tickets displayed on mobile phones instead of being printed on paper. This is members of the RMT trade union. They said they're going to refuse to work on cross-country services during the August bank holiday weekend. So passengers should expect changes to the timetable. They're essentially going on strike unless they get given these technology payments for scanning stuff on phones instead of on bits of paper. And it turns out, get this, one of the reasons they say that they need the extra money is because they get a 5% commission for every ticket that they sell on the train. But because people now have e-tickets, it's reduced the number of paper ticket sales on board because it's easier for passengers to buy e-tickets. You can't prove that. You've either got a ticket or you don't have a ticket, whether it's a bit of paper or whether it's on your phone. And if you haven't got a ticket, they sell you a ticket on the train. Technology payments. What guff. What sort of madness are these unions going to come up with next? I want to be given extra money because I got out of bed today. Oh, it's just absolutely blimmin' ridiculous. Let's do some messages now and then hit up the phone lines. Ron in Smethwick has said, I've just spoken to my elderly neighbour. He only watches mainstream media and has been taken in by Starmer and Cooper because he said to me, I see they've started sending the migrants back. It's very worrying that the BS of this government will fool many people. Sending migrants back. Yeah, my backside. Andy from Brighton says he was looking for a flat in Bournemouth. He found a pub nearby and sat inside watching what was going on. And there was a fight outside the pub of about 10 people. So he asked the landlady what that was all about. And can you call the police? And she said, don't worry, it's just the migrants and the homeless fighting. It happens every day. She said the homeless are on the streets while the migrants are in hotels, and there's therefore always fighting between the two groups. What a sad state of affairs. And I didn't buy the flat in the end and moved to a different area. I don't blame you. Instead of using seaside hotels, why don't they build a huge army barrack-style detention centre in the middle of Dartmoor? Well, it's because they'll probably start spit roasting all of the ponies, won't they? Having that for their feasts at night. Why don't we just not allow them into the country? Sean in Gloucester, he's a regular messenger. Of course he is. He's from one of the best places on earth. This country is in a desperate state, being made even worse every day by the completely stupid Keith Stalin. One in, one out. Did Rachel Reeves do the maths for that? He has to go. The Labour Party have to go and take the Tories with them. I'm beginning to think they all have to go and, like I said, stand in front of the international courts. Hi, Alex. You wouldn't need to build so many new houses if all illegal immigrants were removed, saving our beautiful countryside from fast disappearing, says Les. Absolutely right. It's at the root of everything, the out-of-control immigration. Kevin in Newcastle says, Alex, if the French are letting immigrants head to England and we bring them here, detain them and send one back, why don't we just stop the migrants coming here in a dinghy? It'd save a lot of hassle. Well, yeah, but apparently the PM can be chucked in prison by the civil service if he tries to intercept those dinghies, thus said James Price. Hayley in Cushalton says, seriously, there must be a way of sacking the PM. He's got no clue. He's holding us all hostage and giving illegals lovely free holidays. I wish there was a way. Similar theme here. Karen says Starmer should be charged with treason. He's a traitor to the UK. Let's speak now to John, who's in Bradford. Hello there, John. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I mean, you know, rattled, upset, dismayed, depressed by this country. But, you know, my life ain't as bad as some people's.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about the state of the situation in the Middle East, but this immigration thing's come up quite large. This is an idea. During the Second World War, when the troops were on the beaches, the Germans had got the troops on the beaches, loads and loads of boats went over there to evacuate them and bring them back to the UK.
Right.
How about a load of boats going into the international water between the French and the British things and turning these boats back? And if they don't turn them back, they threaten to puncture them.
What, you mean like vigilante fishermen?
Well, no. You know, people have boats that go into international waters, not in British waters or French waters,
right.
and they turn these boats back before they get into the UK waters and threaten to puncture the boats if they don't turn round.
Well, look, I'm sort of in the spirit of what you're saying, but the problem is if Joe Soap, who has a boat, goes into international waters and tries to block the passage of another boat or deliberately sink it, I think he might find that he's broken the law and could get himself in a bit of trouble.
Well, I'm not saying they do sink it. I'm just saying the threat of it.
Well, I mean, it's an idea. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who have a fishing vessel or a seagoing boat which might be up for sort of defending this island of ours. But like I said, I cannot condone or encourage such things because I will get into big trouble if I do so, John. You did want to talk about the Middle East, though. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Labour's never been in support of the State of Israel. Now, in the 1970s, when I worked for El Al at Heathrow Airport in
the Israeli carrier.
Yeah, they had the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, and the first thing that the Labour government did was to stop supplies of equipment to Israel. And they, you know, the tanks, supplies for the tanks, the replacement parts, they banned it from exporting. They even banned a 707 aircraft engine from leaving the UK to go back to Israel, although it was for a passenger aircraft. And there was a big hoo-ha made about it, and eventually they released it. So what Israel's doing, and these people don't recognise this, they're fighting for the West, because if Israel falls, which I hope to God it doesn't, we're next. The infidels are next. And what these idiots can't see is what's happening, what's, you know, right in front of the face. And the Palestinians don't want Hamas in there. They want them out because they're causing them problems. They're putting military equipment under schools and hospitals. And obviously, if they don't vote for Hamas, they disappear. They're holding the food back, so they keep control of the people.
Oh, Hamas are gangsters. Hamas are gangsters. They you know, bring terror upon their own people, let alone on the neighbouring state. And yet, you know, this government seems to think in some way we can negotiate with these people, give them what they want, reward them for fighting to eradicate people of a different religion. It's sick.
Yes, but Hamas will never accept a two-state solution.
No, they want a one-state solution, which is they want all of it.
Yeah, and they've been offered it a number of times, and it's been turned.
Yeah. Oh, I know, John, I know, darling.
There, really, Gaza should be. Gaza should be the Costa Brava of the Middle East if they'd spent all the money on the people of Gaza.
I know, can you imagine? That's a lovely coastline, isn't it? That Mediterranean Sea. Could have lovely five-star resorts there and uplift people out of poverty. Democratise them, but that ain't what Hamas wants because they're death cult lunatics. John, thank you ever so much for your call. Now, on that topic, we're going to be sticking with that theme after the break because I'm joined by one of my favourites, defence expert, former major in the Parachute Regiment and research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. It is the brilliant Andrew Fox. He's coming up after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show, and welcome to the show, defence expert, one of my heroes, Mr. Andrew Fox. How are you doing, Andrew?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Very well. I've been following keenly your updates on social media because you've been over in Gaza looking at food distribution. I just want to quickly ask about that before we move on to the main stories of today. What did you see there? Because there's so many conflicting narratives. Some people saying it's a shambles, people saying that Israelis are killing people queuing. I've seen other reports where people are saying actually they're not, that there's gangsters and all sorts of people trying to disrupt those chains, and it's actually working quite well.
Well, as ever, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. It's in terms of the sites itself, they've had 100% success rate. Not a single aid package has been intercepted by Hamas, compared to 85% of the UN's on recent figures, which have been intercepted. However, the downside is that Gaza civilians have to walk a long way through a battle zone to actually reach the distribution sites. The Israelis have used live fire for crowd control, which is something that really, as a former soldier, I'm not keen on at all. But the idea that people are just queuing up and getting mown down is ludicrous and hasn't happened at all. So overall, I think it's the right scheme if we're going to, if Israel's going to go down this path, and if we're going to see a prolonged occupation, then they're going to have to take ownership of the aid distribution, and this feels like the right way to do it.
Well done segueing into the next topic, which is the idea of this prolonged occupation. Netanyahu's security cabinet voted in majority for a full security takeover of Gaza to end the war, including Gaza City. Other people are saying, well, this would displace about 1 million odd people, that it's heavy-handed. Sir Keir Starmer obviously thinks it's a terrible idea. There'll be more bloodshed, is urging Netanyahu to have a rethink. Do you think that tactically this is what needs to happen? Because very few people have been inside Gaza. Very few people have had eyes on of what is taking place, who actually have a grip on the reality of the situation there. Is this necessary, or is this Netanyahu sort of going a little bit too far?
Well, the IDF have robustly pushed back against this idea, and I can see why from a soldiering perspective. It's a horrible idea. I mean, Hamas is already defeated. Yes, they still have hostages, and yes, they still have some control within Gaza, but militarily they've been absolutely annihilated. Clearly Gaza lies in ruins, and the IDF is now essentially facing an occupation and all the sort of counterinsurgency worries of IEDs and ambushes that come with a counterinsurgency in order to control some rubble. There's no end state articulated. There's a vague hope that there'll be a transitional authority, maybe the Palestinian Authority, maybe the Arab League helping out. But there's nothing clear here. It's not a good strategy, and tactically it's going to be an incredibly difficult fight for the IDF. So overall, I think it's a pretty poor idea, quite frankly.
How does Israel now dial down this war? If Hamas are essentially militarily defeated, if the job has near enough been done, how is the best way now to retreat and rebuild?
Well, this has been the question from day one, and analysts who look at strategy have been calling repeatedly. Sorry, my phone's going off. They've been calling repeatedly for.
There you are. That's all right. Live radio happens all the time. Don't worry. I'll pick a few calls as well while we're at it. Don't worry.
Okay, we just have to ignore that because my phone's not responding to my touch. I'm sorry, mate.
That's all right.
It is on Do Not Disturb. There we go. Good.
Yeah, that Do Not Disturb is working super well. It's,
that's a cracking bit of technology.
Isn't it? Yeah, brilliant.
Cracking bit of technology. I'm sorry, but yeah, look, the question people like me have been asking right from the start is, what's your end state when it comes to strategy? That's exactly where you should start. You shouldn't start tactical operations without knowing the strategic end state you're trying to get to. And unfortunately, Israel hasn't had that ever since we started this operation, and now Netanyahu is committing to a really challenging military operation, again with no clear end state. And it's really, really difficult for the IDF to come up with a good plan if they don't know where they're supposed to get to at the end of the journey.
Do you think they're, on some level as well, really terrified? Because the minute that they get out of Gaza, the minute that the rest of the world can go into Gaza, there's probably going to be some sort of international outcry, isn't there, looking at how rubberised the place is?
Yeah, absolutely. And even today, with the announcement of the occupation plans, Germany has announced they're stopping any arms sales that might be used in Gaza. I mean, Germany have been in lockstep with Israel since the start of this war for very obvious reasons. The Germans don't like to push back against Israel. But even they are announcing a stop on arms sales. And Israel, I think, at this point needs to start listening to its friends. I think they've been criticised so much. They've just kind of relied on Washington that's now under Trump letting them do whatever they want. And for every small tactical gain they're making in Gaza, strategically they're causing themselves enormous damage on the diplomatic stage. And if they keep going down this route, my fear is they're going to end up like South Africa during the apartheid era, where nobody will trade with them, nobody will do stuff with them, and it's a really dangerous pathway they're going down right now.
So would you sort of support Sir Keir Starmer, who's called out Netanyahu's strategy and said this is going to lead to even more bloodshed? Please have a rethink. Is he right to stick his neck out and intervene?
I mean, it's the right call for all the wrong reasons. as you know, a stop clock is right once a day by coincidence in this case. Like Mr. Starmer's like complaining about humanitarian concerns, and that's fine. But the purpose of a war is not the protection of civilians, quite bluntly and brutally. It's a hard thing to hear, but it's true. There are obligations to make sure civilians aren't unnecessarily harmed, but they're not the main effort. The main effort in a war is defeating the enemy, and that is what Israel is trying to do. So Starmer making humanitarian concerns the centrepiece of this is nonsense. His statement today didn't even mention Hamas. There was some standard line about releasing hostages, the usual one he trots out, but he didn't even mention Hamas in his statement, which is really poor. And again, it will have no effect on the ground anyway, because nobody in Israel listens to a single thing that the UK has to say, because Labour's just spent to a year burning every shred of consent or influence they had in the Middle East with Israel.
I mean, is there any hope whatsoever of any sort of vaguely positive outcome? Because I just can't see it myself. When this is all said and done, you're still going to have elements of Hamas. You could end up with an even more radicalised population in pockets of Gaza who think Israel are their mortal enemy because they've seen the missiles, they've seen the soldiers, they've seen the tanks, they've seen the deaths. Is there enough people in that country to think, hurrah, Hamas are no longer, we're rid of that blight if we are indeed at any point ever going to be rid of them, and then we get the sort of Arab League coming in and helping rebuild the place? Or is that just pipe dreams?
I mean, it might happen. I mean, we can't rule it out. My instinct from the start of the war has always been that this is just another violent blip in an endless conflict. I would be astonished if we were able to achieve permanent peace in the Middle East off the back of this. And ultimately, you've now got 2.3 million people in Gaza who will hate Israel even more than they hated them before 7th of October, because Israel have just laid their homes to rubble. So I've never thought, not even from 8th of October onwards, that this was going to resolve Israel's security issues, and I'm seeing nothing so far that makes me think that it will.
No, and I think, it's down to ideology. This is a religious war of epic proportions. I can't see Hamas suddenly going, that's it, we get it now, we're going to sign up to a two-state solution. They want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Anyone trying to negotiate with them is playing a fool's game, quite frankly. I don't know what the solution is, unless, and I'm going to say something very out of turn here, unless the solution is a one-state solution where there is no more Gaza and the whole lot becomes Israel, and then all the other Arab nations around it go, fair enough, the problem solved.
The good old Trump plan. But yes, I mean, if you can find a way to make that happen, Alex, then you're a better Middle East strategist than I am.
Talking about the old Trump plan, what do you make of Donald Trump's plan for Vladimir Putin? Because, I mean, it seems to me that Putin's running circles around Trump at the moment.
Well, he's been playing him like a fiddle since the start of the war, unfortunately. All the nonsense Trump came out with months ago about how he and Vlad had been through the trenches together when Trump was accused of various things, and so was Putin. It was all rather embarrassing and cringeworthy. And we've not really seen anything that suggests that this is going to move in a helpful direction. At least he's allowing Europe to now buy American weapons for Ukraine. So that's something. But ultimately, I think there's a huge amount of blood on Washington's hands over this. They've effectively emboldened Putin. Trump can complain about the deaths of civilians all he wants, but he's done an awful lot to enable that. So it's a pretty challenging situation in Ukraine as well.
Indeed, it is, Andrew. Thank you so much for coming and giving your insights into so many matters, geopolitic. You're brilliant. Anyone who doesn't follow Andrew on X really needs to follow him on X, because he goes to Gaza, he sends videos, he shows you what's going on. He is honest, he gives you facts, he'll give opinion, yes, but based upon proper research, knowing the data and seeing with his own eyes what is happening. So he's definitely a very important person to follow. Right, we're going to take a little break now, and keep your thoughts coming in, because I reckon we're going to have time for a few more calls perhaps in the last section of the show, and some more messages. 03444991000 is the number to dial if you want to have a little chit chat with me. 87222 is the number to text. You can also use the 03444991000 number to send a WhatsApp. I'm back after this.
Now, the Green Party and the Labour Party will try to make this nothing, will try to make this disappear, but people will not allow that to happen now because they've got the data. It used to be that if you said, oh, well, these particular kinds of people are doing, we all knew it was happening, but if you said that before the data was in, then you were, oh, you're a racist or you're far right. No, that stuff doesn't matter anymore because we know, the people know.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. It's the final chunk of the show now, and we're joined by Chris McGovern, who is the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, because we're going to be talking about the fact that potentially middle-class children will be shut out of the best schools in the country because of Labour's equality crackdown. This is because Labour's policy is going to be that schools are forced to give pupils from a working-class background priority when applying for school places. That's according to Conservative research, which they think now is going to mean that middle-class people are going to be leapfrogged by working-class people in order to get the best school places. Instead of judging applications on who should go to what school based upon how far away from a school someone lives, the catchment area. Chris, what do you make of Labour's policy on this? Is it something we should be worried about, or is it actually a step in the right direction for social mobility?
Well, sadly, it is something we should be worried about. Look, it's social engineering, Alex, isn't it? There is a problem because we have selection by postcode at the moment. But actually, the government also tells us that 90% of schools are good or outstanding. So that shouldn't really be too much of a problem. But yeah, we do have selection by postcode. It would be far better to have selection, if we're going to have selection, not by your background in terms of diversity, but by your aptitude. So, you know, we could expand, for example, grammar schools, so we had far more of those, but also have alongside those excellent vocational and technical schools, then that would solve the problem. But we've tried this bus. If you decide you're going to move kids around, you have to bus them. It's been tried in the United States. Joe Biden, 50 years ago, called it a liberal train wreck. It's been a disaster there. It actually lowers scores and it causes tension in the school. So it's social engineering. It's not a good idea. But there is a case to say, look, we need to look after children in line with their aptitude. And there are many academic bright kids in poor areas who could go and benefit from perhaps from an academic school, but there are other kids who've got skills which we need, plumbers, electricians of the future, who need to go to a vocational school. So we need to look at the education system more broadly. This is just politicking, and I'm afraid it's not going to benefit anybody. We should learn from the lesson of history. It's failed in the United States.
Yeah, Chris, you've actually already answered my next question, because I was going to ask you about grammar schools. I was blessed to have gone to a grammar school myself. I come from Gloucester, which has a significant working class population, but is one of the few places in England that still has lots of grammar schools, and everyone sits their J4 and sees who can get in. But when I went to grammar school and we all sat our J4, that was that. It wasn't so much on catchment area, so you could be from the poorest suburb or you could be from the richest suburb. It was all about a meritocracy. But in today's world, there are lots of people who can afford private tutors to help their kids pass their J4 and things like that. Is that a problem?
Yeah, there are a lot of children these days, most of all in London, who are being privately tutored. Tony Blair, for example, very bravely sent his children to an excellent comprehensive school, but he also privately educated them from top tutors from over the road at Westminster School. Look, I was someone who failed the 11+. I went to secondary modern school, so here am I speaking up for grammar schools. But I actually passed at 13. There was flexibility in that system. What I would like to see, if I was advising government now, would be, look, we know we've got a comprehensive school system. Is there a way forward? The way forward, Alex, is to have what we used to call bilateral schools, so that within the comprehensive school, there is what you might call a grammar school stream and also a vocational stream, perhaps from the age of 14. We've had them in the past. They were successful. So, yeah, we do need to divide children up, but not by sheep and goats, but horses for courses, by their aptitude. We desperately need skilled workers. We've got to get away from the idea that somehow if you're grammar school, you're superior. No, grammar school's great for some kids, but vocational schools are great for other kids. Other parts of the world do that. Most parts of the world which have successful economies, particularly in Asia, they divide the kids up on terms of aptitude from about the age of 13 or 14. We need to go along that pathway. And so, look, this idea of busing kids round is a nonsense. It's going to be divisive. It's going to cause discipline problems. When you move kids from one area, you uproot them from their locality, put them in another area, it's going to cause problems. It's going to be very divisive.
Oh, and it's going to be blimmin' hard for a working class parent if their kid is being bussed halfway across town and all of a sudden they're sick and needs a parent to go pick them up and things like that. It makes life even more difficult. I've never understood why there's so much ideological opposition to grammar schools. Oh, it's not fair separating people on how clever they are, when that's what all schools do. You know, even if you go to a comprehensive school, you put in the top set for maths or the bottom set or anything in between. That is what people have to do in order to teach whichever school a child goes to. And I'm totally in agreement with you. Some people are just practical, superbly practical in a way that I could never be. Ask me to put up a shelf and it's going to fall down on my noggin in a matter of minutes. But there are some people who can just look at things, find solutions, get things done, rather than good old dyspraxic me who can't do anything to save her life. I'm really good at poetry, which doesn't really get you far when you want to rewire your house.
Well, let me add one thing there, Alex. You know, you talk about grammar schools. Well, actually, in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be having the GCSE results. Now, the GCSE is an exam which is for the comprehensive schools. We used to have O-levels. That was the grammar school exam. They still have that in Singapore. And Singapore, strangely enough, are top of the world rankings for education. So, you know, when we talk about the abolition
British system, the old British system is what they use.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about grammar schools, we also, and the abolition of most grammar schools, it was also the abolition of the exam for grammar schools, which was the O-level, which got me involved many years ago, now back in the 80s, in the great education debate then. So, look, we've got to take a serious look at our education system. What is being proposed here is tinkering with the system. It's going to be socially divisive. It's part of class warfare. So we want grammar schools back, but whether they are within the same building, it could be bilateral. I wouldn't mind that alongside good vocational streams as well. We need both, and we need to learn from the rest of it. We don't have a choice, Alex. We don't have a choice. We've got to get it right.
I don't understand why they seem to change everything every 5 seconds. When I was at school, we were the first year group to do SATs. We were the first year group to do AS levels. We seem to be the guinea pigs when it came to various forms of examination and testing. And now when I speak to people who've got GCSE kids and stuff, they're not given A, B, C and D. They're given all sorts of weird numbers. I'm like, what's going on here? It's just
you may well ask that question, and don't forget also that when we closed schools down for a couple of years during COVID, the exam results improved. They went through the roof. That tells you a lot about the lying and the opaque nature of the education system. You'll find lots of statistics, lots of boasting. You'll find something and everything in education, Alex, but you'll never find the truth.
No, you're right about that. They certainly pull the wool over our eyes. Chris McGovern, thank you ever so much, Chairman of the Campaign for Real Education. Bring back grammar schools, I say. They certainly did me no harm. Like I said, I was extremely lucky to be from a city that still has grammar schools. And back then, I don't know what they are now, but certainly single-sex grammar schools. And I certainly thrived without the distraction of young men until the age of 16, when I then went to the all-boys school. Oh, yes, I did, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Right, let's squeeze in some calls, shall we, and some more messages before I wrap up for the day and speak to Susan, who's in North Yorkshire. Hello there, Susan.
Good afternoon, Alex. I'm probably not going to have as much time to say as I want, but my husband and I lived in France for 12 years.
Oh, lovely. Where?
Yes, we came back 10 years ago. I'm asking myself why. We came back via London. We came up to God's own country of Yorkshire, but they're bussing them in up here.
Not really?
Yes. I mean, the city I live in is a city of sanctuary.
Where are you in Yorkshire then?
Ripon.
Ripon.
Yes.
But the thing is, you know, you came back 10 years ago from France. Whereabouts were you in France?
Southwest France, in the Lot Valley.
Oh,
between
beautiful.
Bordeaux and Toulouse. And we came back for various reasons. One was, as we were getting older, you know, there wasn't any transport or anything. You needed a car. There is some form of transport in Ripon. But like you, I had hospital experience. I broke my leg in the morning. It was fixed by 5 o'clock. I got everything. I got physiotherapy, I got wheelchairs, I got everything.
Oh, medical care. Yeah, medical care on the continent. We need a European-style medical system over here. I would say this to you, though, Susan, because you must have been back to France since then, I'm guessing.
No.
Oh, have you not?
I'm not flown for 10 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean,
that's through choice.
Yeah.
But no, it's, I mean, we've got a lovely house and a fantastic garden here. But the people here live in their own little world. They don't realise what's going on. They don't. We've got a big army camp that's going to be built on.
Oh, really?
And it's supposed to be housing, but who is it for?
I'll tell you. So I'm gonna add a few little things to your thought process there, Susan, because last summer I spent a long period of time in France because I wasn't allowed to broadcast during the election period because I'd been a prominent figure in a particular political party. So I was taken off air and I thought, right, what am I going to do? Sit and twiddle my thumbs for 6 weeks? My mate has a house in the south of France and he said, I'm not in it, go and use it. And so my other half and I, we got the ferry over, drove all the way down the west coast. We were in the southeast, and then we drove all the way back up the east coast and stopped off at places en route and then spent a load of time in the Corbière area, which is sort of down near the border of Spain.
I know that well.
Yeah, it's beautiful down there. But also, you can go to that part of France in the Pyrenees and you won't see a single migrant. You won't. It's just not a thing. But I would say this, if you go to some of the cities in France, I kind of think they're worse off than we are. You go to places like Toulouse, well, no, even places like Toulouse, parts of Burgundy, Dijon, they have running gun battles between migrant gangs. I mean, we got a problem over here, but believe you me, France is not exempt from this issue.
No, and there was that small village, wasn't there, when people came into a party where young people were having a party and were, you know, attacking them.
Well, there's also...
It's not paradise.
No, exactly. The whole of Europe is blighted by this, which is why France doesn't mind turning the other cheek when people are crossing the channel. France has got a big problem with churches being burned down, which is pretty alarming. Susan, I'm going to have to say goodbye to you, but thank you so much for your call, and I wish you the best of time in Ripon. Hello, Mr. Collins. How are you?
Hello, Ms. Phillips.
Were you off last week? I can't remember.
Couple of days.
Couple of days. Is that it?
Had a couple of days. I had a day one side of the weekend, 2 days one side of the weekend, one side the other.
So you snuck yourself in a cheeky little mini break, didn't you?
A cheeky little mini break in the hospital. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Not so much. I won't pry anymore then.
It's a transition, and I don't need mockery for that, frankly.
A transition?
You know, yes. And don't call me Ian anymore, please.
What is it instead? Ianella?
Barbara.
Babs. All right then, Babs.
Big Babs.
What's coming up, Big Babs?
What's going on, Big Babs? We're talking. I know you spoke to Kevin O'Sullivan a little earlier. The list he read out last night on air, which was incredibly powerful. But it does chime with something. I also read, there was a poll yesterday, New Statesman of all places, that did a poll on how many people would take to the streets to protest and be angry while protesting. It's quite interesting. It does divide down because a big percentage of Green Party members would actually get out there and protest vigorously, arguably for different causes, but, you know, we're a democracy, that's how it works.
Oh, so this isn't about protesting against migrant hotels, it's just generic protest?
It kind of comes on the back of that, really, you know, what would make you protest and all the rest of it. But generally speaking, the amount of people that are clearly fed up, really fed up, I've often explored, you know, what's the most powerful argument about illegal immigration? Because we can argue all the seductive stuff, doesn't seem to wash with politicians. Do we argue economically? Like, if nothing else, argue economically. 7 million quid a day and counting. Translation services, God knows what.